Just one third down conversion tonight. Make it 2 on a big run from Avery Johnson all the way to the end zone. How about that?
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
And now Ollie Gordon breaks the tackle. Ollie Gordon with running room. Inside the 10. House call. 46 yards for OG2.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Here's Brooks getting the edge. Brooks. Touchdown, Texas Tech.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
On second down, Bowman locks this one into coverage, and he's picked again. Guess who? Damari Henderson with his second interception and his third takeaway today.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
There goes Green, scrambling, and that speed inside the 10, and he'll go all the way. Touchdown! Nobody ever got him.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Lichtenberg trying to throw his first pass, going downfield. Oh my goodness! What an interception! Kobe Bryant. Da-da-da, da-da-da.
Now here's David Smoke and Craig Smoke.
All right, here we go. 365 Sports headed into the weekend. This is a Friday. 365 Sports, Craig Smoke. I'm David Smoke. Paul Catalina is out today and also on vacation all of next week, and so we continue through the summer. Next thing you know, we'll look up early July. We'll be in Vegas for Big 12 Media Days. We have a lot to get to. Amanda Christovich from Front Office Sports on her thoughts and opinion on yesterday's stories involving the Big 12 and even the AAC when it comes to private equity, or before that, naming a sponsor to a conference's name. Also today, we'll update the College World Series. We'll also update the U.S. Open. We'll have guests including Jake Trotter, who now works for ESPN, John Curts, big day for K-State, and Jerome Tang. All of that and more. Craig Smoke with me here on 365 Sports. Update of the College World Series. Virginia just took a 2-1 lead on North Carolina. That game in the sixth inning up in Omaha, Nebraska. Coleman Hawkins from Illinois has committed to play at Kansas State. Apparently a really nice NIL deal. And Jerome Tang and K-State have put together one huge front line. Will they have enough guards? I'm sure they'll figure that out. But Coleman Hawkins, a tremendous player, talent from Illinois, has committed to play for Jerome Tang this upcoming school year.
Yeah, good for them. I know last year was a bit of a disappointment as far as the follow-up campaign goes because year one was just so electric, but they've made no bones about the fact that they are very much remaining in the hunt, and I think this is a move that shows you that they are heavily committed to that basketball program thriving and have a $2 million deal, which I don't know. We start getting into the money with some of these things, and I either don't really care most of the time or I question kind of the numbers. But I believe this. I mean, I've heard of other guys going for $2 million, which sounds like a weird thing to say, but big investment for Coleman Hawkins. I guess it depends on what corner of the internet you want to look at to see how good of a player he is. I've seen a mixed reaction. Some feel he's not worth the money. When you're talking $2 million, some feel that he's, maybe going to be even better with a change of scenery in Manhattan. I'll let the experts decide on that, but it appears to be a really nice addition for Jerome Tang, one of the top transfers out there, and obviously they feel like there's a good dollar amount worth investing in this guy. So, good for Kansas State. Seems like they're fired up about this addition.
I sent a text to Jerome Tang, and I said, hey, congratulations with the bulgy eyes. He said, God is good. That's kind of how he responds to most of the text messages. So K-State gets themselves a big out of Illinois. Also, yesterday we had the story, and Amanda Christovich will join us at 3:30 to talk from her perspective in the business world about sports business. AAC commissioner, remember, Mike Oresco's no longer the commissioner. AAC commissioner saying that he's trying to solve how to help coaches keep talent on campus. Also attract new talent to a different experience. Could you find a brand that is willing to support student athletes, every sport, every school within a conference, provide an opportunity to generate new revenue and resources that can go directly to student athletes? This is the kind of stuff we need to be thinking about in reference to the AAC, the American Conference, also possibly having somebody for their naming rights.
I mean, I gave it more thought and chewed on it a bit more yesterday, and I was leaving yesterday feeling like the naming rights thing was an absolute green light. If you're the Big 12, I still think it feels a little weird, and I think it's okay that it feels a little weird, that you don't just blindly go like, yeah, sure, let's sign that off too for more money. But given the view of the whole landscape, I don't know that the SEC or the Big Ten will go out and do the exact same thing. So if they don't and you close the gap by a couple $1 million, then I think that that's a good move. And you can't not do things because the other people you're trying to catch might do them too. I think that's a stupid reason to not do something. So if you can add – and you don't need to do everything in reaction to other people either. So Brett Yormark's got to worry about the Big 12. If $2 million extra to – have the naming rights changed is worthwhile for everybody involved, then I think go with it. I mean, what are we talking about? It's the name of a conference as well. I do think that you don't want to make it too much of a clown show and, have just some weird name, although, it tends to be reported that, it's the All-State 12. I think that's simple enough and not so in your face as far as the marketing of it goes, that All-State Big 12 or Big 12 presented by All-State or whatever. That's fine with me. I think for $2 million a year, that's a smart move and not really giving away too much, honestly, because what are we talking about in the long run? It's not changing the name of the SEC or the Big Ten. I think that would probably rattle a few more cages, and I think they'll find a way around where they are more of a Big Ten presented by Geico or whatever.
Right.
So I think if the Big 12 can kind of stay in that lane, yeah, it seems like a smart move and the type of move that Brett Yormark was hired to make, and one of the only types of things that you can really do at this point to generate income that's not already there. And I know the other one is private equity, as we'll talk about, I'm sure. But, the more I chewed on the naming rights thing, as long as they don't goof the name up too much and it's All-State 12 or something like that, I'm all for it. I think it's a smart deal.
You think they should change the number?
I actually don't now. I've changed my mind since yesterday.
All right, why?
Because we don't know how many are going to be in the league 2 years from now. We don't know how many will be in the league 4 years from now. So if you change it now, then you add, I don't know, maybe some schools from the ACC, maybe some, other options are out there eventually as well. Or, I know there's always the Pac-2 clinging onto the life raft of hoping to get an invite, and I don't necessarily believe that's right around the corner. I said that a year ago, and here we are, and I still don't feel like that's necessarily right on the door, even though I took some heat for that. But here we are. I do think the ACC thing is very real. I think there's just too much unknown, basically, is why you don't change the name now. Because
I never even put that into consideration.
That's really what it boils down to for me. And you fought all this time to have the Big 12 survive, basically, right? So I think you want to kind of maintain that, and if you're going to become the third conference, potentially, or you're going to be one of the Power Four, then don't you want it to be the Big 12 as it was known and not basically a brand new conference? Because that's pretty much what you would be creating if you then change the name. So that's where I fall on it, mostly because it's going to fluctuate too much to make it a permanent thing.
Well, no, that's a great reason. I was wondering about the 12 because now it's 14. No, excuse me, it's 16, and who knows what it'll be a little bit later on. Somebody mentioned Southwest Airlines as a sponsor. But then again, you have West Virginia, Cincinnati. They fly all over the country now, which is something they've done for quite some time. But I kind of like that one. But there's a lot of different names, whether it's Allstate or whoever
Buc-ee's,
else.
I know, has been mentioned as like just a fun, everybody having fun with what all could be named what and what makes sense regionally. And I know, Buc-ee's is broadening its horizons across the country. But, yeah, Southwest, I think that would be a nice partner, especially because even if you have, other schools that are maybe not in that hub per se, there's still a lot of schools that are. I mean, I still think the conference offices are going to be in DFW, so there's Southwest for you right there. So I think that, yeah, that would make a lot of sense. There's tons of them, though. There's tons when you start looking through all the schools and who they're associated with that seem like they would be, good naming rights partners that wouldn't be too just out there, like gobbledygook.com. Like that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, where you have some of those startups and internet companies, and I think it can kind of just get weird. But Southwest or Allstate, whatever, I think that's okay enough.
One of the things that you got to be careful even with the possibility of national bank names, because they've changed. Different companies get bought out and they change, and we've seen that in the cellular business as far as technology. So. All right, so there we are with
I'm all in
AC.
on the name thing. If it's All-State, Big 12, or All-State, I think you got to keep Big 12. Like All-State, Big 12, I think that's fine. I think that's $2 million. Where else you get an extra $2 million for doing nothing, really, other than just changing some logos and changing some banners and things. So, yeah, I've definitely settled in on that since yesterday. The private equity thing, I'm in and out on that because I still need to learn more about that. But
I'm working on.
I'm glad that your mark is out there kicking the tires, and I think that some of the pushback you see yesterday, I don't take that as like, man, these are all the smartest people in the world. This guy clearly doesn't know what he's doing. I kind of take that as a good sign that he is ruffling some feathers, and that there are some people going, wait a second, you're not supposed to nab another couple $1 million and. And I'm not under any illusion that they're ever going to be on par as like a number 3 in the race for the top conferences, because I think the gap is just so huge due to TV dollars. But I do think that if you can incrementally add $2 million here, $4 million there, $3 million, all of a sudden the athletic departments are making $7 to $10 million more. No, that's not going to have you at the top of the list of highest earners, but it's going to have you squarely number 3 at some point.
And growing.
And so, I'm all for that. And that's without including the private equity possibilities.
I did reach out to somebody who is in the private equity business. I have not heard back from them. I sent a text. And then I tried to call on the way to the studio, and it went straight to voicemail. I don't even know where he might be. But I did reach out to 2 or 3 different people who are a part of the investment involved in private equity. Kim Coulter brought this up to me. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Kim, of course, has been very vocal about private equity, and that a lot of us maybe just don't understand if you're not a part of any kind of a major business or how business works. But he did bring this up as well. If, in fact, you have some of these schools that are going to have to start paying an extra $20 or $22 million, what is that, cap or whatever, when it comes to revenue sharing with athletes, and you can't do that. You have to. You don't have a choice if that all works out and it all goes to the next level. So let's put it this way. Kim goes, so what sports are you going to cut? What sports do you cut if you're Texas Tech or you're Oklahoma State or you're Baylor or any of them, if you cannot afford to move into the next level of what college football finances and revenue might be about?
Well, here's the thing. First of all, to get straight, you don't have to pay the full cap.
No, you don't.
I mean, you're going to have to pay players, but just because the cap is, let's say, $20 million, that doesn't mean that Texas Tech, even though I'm sure they would, but, that doesn't mean that every other school out there has to pay $20 million. I'm sure there will be some that pay like 12 and feel like that's a better investment for their roster or whatever. But, yeah, I mean, to his point, where does all this extra money come from? Well, I think some of it comes from you're not basically burning it and setting it on fire with all of the goofy stuff that we used to, gawk over, like the example always used is the colored waterfalls and facilities and things like that. Like, I think you aren't necessarily spending on those, or you're cutting back on those, or those types of areas. But that's still not enough to necessarily turn into $10 to $20 million that you'll need on your roster. So, yeah, I mean, outside of donors and your normal chains of financing, then, yeah, you have to look elsewhere, and it does make some sense. I think the problem's not so much paying the bill early on. It's when the bill comes due later on. And I'm still quite curious as to how you magically are making so much more money down the pipeline? Is it because now the conference has given you another $2 million for its name, and then you have other business deals that come together, and that's how you're ultimately going to pay back this stuff with interest? Like, that's the thing to me, is like, when the check comes due, are you guaranteed that all the moves you made are putting you on a path to where you're all going to have the money to pay that back? You know what I mean?
You're
like,
talking about the private equity part now. That not,
well, yeah.
No, no, that's. I've read up a bunch about it. I've read a bunch of responses from people about it, and even people in investments. And you're right. Is it a short-term fix, so to speak, and what's going to happen when it's due? And a lot of people making these decisions will be retired.
Well, I hear the, and the fact basketball is underrated, and and it's like, but you're not guaranteed to get that much more money out of basketball. That's what you hope for if you're Brett Yormark. That's something that you want to have happen, but that's not guaranteed. So if things like that don't necessarily occur, I know they plan for that, but I just, the idea of that money looming out there and with interest and things like that, I'm not an expert on it, but it just makes me a little bit leery of, like, yeah, and initially it seems like it wouldn't be a problem, but 5-10 years down the line, if you're not having success, what does that look like?
Well, that's why you have a lot of other people who help make those decisions, not just the school presidents, a lot of others who are analysts, et cetera, consultants. We're now joined by Jake Trotter, senior college football writer for ESPN. He covered college football, then he went to cover the NFL for a while, and it's great to have Jake back in college athletics. Jake, thank you for your time. Craig Smoke, David Smoke on 365 Sports. How much of an adrenaline rush is this for you? Not that you didn't love what you were doing, but to get back into college athletics and football.
Well, first of all, it's so great to talk to you guys again. It's been a long time since I've been on the air with you down there. It's been a blast so far. I think I loved college football the most, growing up in that part of the country. We know how important college sports is, and it's definitely an adventure being in the NFL, covering the Browns, but kind of feels like I'm back home again. The only snag is, man, college football has changed quite a bit in the last 5 years. I heard what you guys were talking about just now, the conference naming rights, but every level of the game is just so different, and it's going to take me a little while, I think, to get up to speed, because it's not the same game it was back in 2019.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Jacob, like, how recognizable or unrecognizable is college sports compared to when you left? But do you feel like, given the business side of the NFL and the things that are negotiated and kind of the way things work, are you almost suited to even better cover college sports as it is in this new era itself, where it's got a lot of things that weren't there before?
Well, 99% of the players in the NFL have an agent, and now it feels like in college football, that percentage is pretty close, at least among the players that really matter across the board. NIL deals, are part of that too. It feels like we're headed toward an NFL model at some point. Like, I don't know when it's going to happen. I'd be very surprised if we didn't see more seismic changes in the college football landscape. You have the Big Ten, you have the SEC, you've got the Big 12 and the ACC, or whatever the Big 12 ends up being called here in the next few months. But I think that it's going to come down to can we have some kind of salary cap? Can we have contracts? Otherwise, you're just going to have mass movement all of the time. And I know you talk to coaches, who are I think at their wits' end with this, and it's not really a sustainable model. To be recruiting, and then you have to re-recruit, and then it just comes down to what kind of NIL money you can offer. There's plenty of money in the system, but I think that, at some point, I think we could get to a model that is very, very similar to the NFL, where players have agents, they sign contracts to go to school somewhere, they get paid X amount of dollars. Everybody knows what that figure is. It's all transparent. And, you have opportunities to, maybe transfer when your contracts are up, something like that. And then you're going to have your AFC and your NFC. I think that's where it seems like it's headed. But man, we've had a lot of turbulence along the way, and I don't obviously think we're done there.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out scars I have, not from being negative about it, but from all the changes really since right before COVID, when COVID, NIL, transfer portal, now you have this revenue sharing. The athletes, of course, have been able to make up for a lot of time that when many others were not able to earn it. So you, what were your thoughts as you watched the college football conference realignment stories with Texas OU in 21, USC and UCLA in 22, and then, of course, completely all hell broke loose last year?
Well, my issue with the Big 12 back when I was covering, some of those realignment discussions was I felt like the league was not being aggressive enough. And I think that they looked at their situation and felt good about it and that we're just going to try to hold on. And to me, that was never going to be sustainable because at some point, what happened was going to potentially happen, where Oklahoma and Texas were going to have, too much opportunity, and that they were, potentially going to eventually leave. Now, I didn't know that they were going to leave together. Like maybe Texas goes to the Big 10, Oklahoma goes to the Big 12, and the idea of being at 10 and not being aggressive, to me was going to put the league in peril, its existence in peril. And I think since Oklahoma and Texas left, the Big 12 has done exactly what it's needed to do. And it's been super aggressive in getting the Arizona schools and Colorado and Utah, along with what it had done beforehand, I think really solidified the league. And, the Big 12 is not going to be the SEC. It's not going to be the Big 10. But it's a really interesting league in that, who's going to win the league year to year? Like you could probably make the case for 9 different teams, and I would listen this season. And I think that makes for a really fun league. Also, too, the Big 12 has, a path to the playoff. And I think that this is going to be the case in all conferences, or at least the 4 major ones. But, we're going to have games that matter in November in a way that they didn't before. Baylor, Kansas State could be a huge game, for example. Oklahoma State, Colorado. These could be big games where in the past, they might be big games for the Big 12 race. They might be big games just because you want to win a certain number of games at those programs, but you had no shot to get to the playoff. And now you've got a shot. And all of a sudden these games matter in a way that they didn't before. Maybe a bye, is on the line. I think that's going to be fun. I think it's going to help de-regionalize college football where, we already know who the 5, 6, 7 teams in in contention for the playoffs, but every year we're going to be getting kind of stale. I felt like, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, maybe Oklahoma. It just, there wasn't enough, I think, diversity. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And I think if you're a program of a place like Baylor, I think college football is going to be a lot more enjoyable in this new model, at least for as long as this new model lasts.
Jake, you talked about the Big 12 finally being aggressive, and obviously Brett Yormark's a big departure, just personality and things like that, background from Bob Bowlesby. He is not for everybody, Brett Yormark, because some people are more traditional and maybe a little bit stuffy, and maybe a little bit threatened as well just by not really knowing where he's coming from and what his aims are. Don't know how much knowledge you have of him, but you hear us talking about, naming the conference the All-State Big 12 or whatever that might be and making a couple $1 million per team, or even going the private equity route, which I don't I'm not an expert, and I don't expect you to be either, but if you have any light on to shed on that, by all means. But what do you think about just some of these non-traditional moves starting to be made to try and be aggressive and also just keep up with the Joneses, even though you'll never quite catch them, but keep up with them as best you can?
Yeah, not that long ago, recruiting was about facilities, right? And creating the nicest facilities to recruit to. And now it's about, the NIL dollars. You're not going to see the same type of crazy facility renovations that we've seen in the past because, money's not burning a hole in everyone's pocket like it was not that long ago. And, just being back in the game, like you talked to, You talk to coaches, you talk to players, and what matters now is what can you offer in NIL. And you're the Big 12. You're never going to get the distribution numbers in television revenue that the Big 10 and the SEC are going to start to collect with the brands that they have and the eyeballs that are going to be on that conference. And so, you've got to find ways to narrow the gap, and this is one way to help do that. And I mean, I think the name Big 12 is sort of silly anyway at this point. Like, it's not the, you don't have 12 members in the conference. I don't know that the Big 12 has the cachet what really matters anymore. What matters is having a coherent, cohesive conference that can, produce some winning teams and, put players in the NFL and be able to recruit the kind of talent that allows you to compete in the playoff with the other conferences. And getting more money is going to help you be able to do that. So I think whatever you can do to drum up revenue, if you're the Big 12, is a smart play. Now, you don't want to get too ridiculous about it, but I think it sort of makes sense. And whether it was like trying to bring in Gonzaga or Connecticut, and trying to okay, let's find our niche as the top basketball conference. Maybe that's not the right idea, but I like that the league is turning over every stone. And it felt like for a while there, it was not doing that. I mean, I remember 5-6 years ago, I was like, the Big 12 has got to go after these Pac-12 schools because that's the only place you're going to be able to expand from. And you're going to have to expand at some point in order to keep pace with the SEC and the Big Ten. Now, I didn't see the Pac-12 completely imploding and members joining the Big Ten. But I do think the Big 12 has to be aggressive in order to, be relevant. And I think that they've done a pretty good job of that, the last 2-3 years.
There were bowl games forever that did not have sponsorships attached to them. And then they started having whatever it was, the Orange Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, whatever.
Yeah. And
people got used to it. You know why? Because people were cashing checks, right, Jake?
Money determines all in sports. And, we've got logos on NBA jerseys. We're going to have logos on fields. People are going to get used to all of it. And, if your team is good, I think at the end of the day, and you have fun watching them and going to games, that's what's going to matter. So, yeah, money. I mean, it's sometimes depressing to think about how money dictates everything, but at the same time, that's just the way it is. And for a long time, these colleges didn't know what to do with all the money that they had. Certainly weren't paying players at least above the table, and so now, players are getting a cut of money that they are help generating. So I think the system is getting closer to a fairer, a fairer plane, but it does feel like it's too chaotic still. And so I think we've got work to do.
Jake, I know you were around, Oklahoma, obviously, with the Oklahoman and Texas, the Statesman, and just all over the Big 12. But, man, the list of, if you were to put side by side of when you left college football to when you returned to it, the number of things that are the playoff and the
Crazy.
NIL, and, I mean, how long would that list go, I wonder? But what stands out to you the most, or what's maybe of most interest to you that you're looking forward to? And if the answer is just the pure game of football, then I think a lot of people would applaud that as well.
12-team playoff. I'm excited about the 12-team playoff. I hated, when it went from the BCS to the playoff, I was like, okay, I think that's fine, but I don't like how elitist college football can be, and that we sort of already determined who's playing in the playoff before the season even starts. I want you to earn it on the field. And, I know the committee tries to do a good job, but at some point, if you go 12-0, you should be in the playoff. I don't care if you think the other team is better. What does that even mean? It's the only sport where, we determine championships by almost subjectively. And so now I think we're going to have a more, balanced, objective system where you can play your way in. I don't think anybody's going to be able to say, complain too much about not making the playoff because, there are different paths to get there. Whereas before, you could be 13-0 Florida State, and that's not good enough. you could be the Big 12 champion, and unless you were Oklahoma or Texas, you're probably going to need a miracle to get in the playoff. I remember was it 2011, the year, RG3 won the Heisman, and Oklahoma State had a great team that year, and they didn't get in. I think we had the LSU-Alabama rematch, but I felt like Oklahoma State, had done everything possible, but they weren't Oklahoma, so they were not going to get the benefit of the doubt. And I think now, that's going to eliminate some of the, the inherent bias that's in the system that favors the powerhouse blue blood programs.
Jake, we're going to hopefully get you on a lot more. Loved having you on before, and also enjoyed even your coverage when you were covering the NFL. What do you start tackling first? Do you get into all of this outside noise that's really a cloud, and not saying it's a black cloud, or do you start to focus in on actually games, wins, losses, or do you still have a couple of months before you have to worry about that with the season not starting until late August?
Yeah, I'm starting on teams and games and storylines. I mean, we're not that far from the season, and that still matters, right? Like we get lost in all this stuff off the field. What's Congress doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, it's still college football, and what the pageantry, the tradition, the rivalries, all of that is what makes college football special, and that's what I'm going to focus on immediately. I'll have to write about the other stuff eventually, but yeah, I'm excited about writing about the storylines heading into the season, and there are a lot of them across the country.
Great stuff, man. Great to hear you again, Jake. Thank you so much for your time. Enjoy being back in the great game of college football.
Good to talk to you guys again.
You too.
Take care.
Jake Trotter, ESPN college football writer, covered the Big 12, then moved on to the NFL, Cleveland Browns, and more, and now back in as the senior writer for ESPN with college football. And loved a lot of what he had to say, and even just the fact that there's a guy who's been gone, but watching, but monitoring, but gone from covering it, and how much it really has changed. Amanda Christovich here in just a moment.
Yeah, I mean, I was tempted to ask him about Oklahoma in particular because he covered them for a long time, and I obviously care, but just get his thoughts on their move to the SEC. But I'll save that for the next time. We can unpack more of the, like he said, actual football stuff, even though we kind of dabble with it a little bit. But, yeah, I just think it's crazy if you were to look at, like, before and after of when he left and when he came back, and just the number of differences I think would be obvious to all of those, like us who talk about it or think about it or whatever every day, or pretty much every day. But if you just line them up next to each other, I think it would be just crazy to see all that's actually taking place if you were to see it in black and white in front of you, So, yeah, I'm sure there's a lot to kind of get your arms around and figure out. But at the same time, a lot of new and interesting things going on that have certainly spiced up the conversation around the game, if not on the field as well.
It seems like it's never ending. It's like the OU drill. When you have people around you, you get tackled, and there's a blocking dummy that hits you everywhere you look. When we come back, Amanda Christovich, Front Office Sports. What were her thoughts and reactions when she talked to various people in the investment or business of college athletics about the private equity notes from yesterday and the naming of the Big 12 Conference? This is 365 Sports. PettyClinicalOT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be as you get older. In fact, it's 1 out of every 3 to 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone when you get into your 40s and closer to your 50s. It could happen before then, but that's kind of the average. And it can lead to a lot of different things. Gaining some weight despite the fact you're active and have a pretty good diet. Losing your energy, focus, not just because you have attention deficit, but you just kind of lose your focus, your energy, you're lethargic. And sex drive becomes an issue too. That can also be from low testosterone. Dr. Petty wants to help you out. Contact him and his staff at PettyClinicalOT.com. Go on there and tell him I sent you. They will then set you up, have an appointment to have your blood drawn. They get the results. Dr. Petty will look at them and see where your testosterone level is. And if it is too low, he has an option, a program for you to get involved with to help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be at PettyClinicalOT.com.
Make this the summer of Jeep at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get a 2024 Jeep Compass under $30,000 or save $13,000 on a Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland. Visit Allen Samuels in Waco today.
Come by. Let's be friends.
It's Dodge Power Shot Days at Allen Samuels in Waco, where the thrill of the drive meets unbeatable savings. Feel the adrenaline as you conquer the road in a 2023 Dodge Durango RT, now with a jaw-dropping $12,500 off. Or unleash the power of the 2023 Dodge Charger Challenger RT, now available with remarkable $11,000 off. Feel the rush of pure performance and style as you dominate the urban jungle. Don't miss your chance to experience the thrill of Dodge Power Shot Days. Hurry in and claim these incredible savings before they're gone. Come by. Let's be friends.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Kasasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then invest in a 13-month share certificate and earn 4.9 APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Kasasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Amanda Christovich from Front Office Sports. We've had her on when it comes to sports business, and always a way to walk out of the segment knowing more than perhaps when we walked in. She joins us now on 365 Sports. Craig Smoke, David Smoke with her now. Amanda, what was your reaction when you saw the news yesterday about the Big 12 and also the American Conference with naming rights? And then, of course, we'll get to the private equity note as well.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me on again. I honestly kind of laughed a little bit because all of the jokes about, like, you know, selling naming rights to change your conference's name sound a little ridiculous, but in reality, you know, it's a pretty savvy idea. And so is the private equity, which I'm sure we'll get to next. You know, given the fact that at least the power conferences are looking at millions of extra dollars that they're going to have to find and in their athletic department budgets to start paying players. So while like the jokes are great and it sounds kind of ridiculous, I really do think that, these conferences are going to have to get creative, and the most creative ones are going to be the most successful.
Yeah, it's $2 million you didn't have right beforehand, and that can go a long way in helping to fill out a football roster and whatnot. So yeah, I think we're kind of in the same place as far as that goes. It sounded very wonky originally and very, very weird, but it does make some sense. Now, the private equity thing, on the other hand, you're right. That's what we'll get to next here. You're far more well-versed in all this. I try to understand it, Amanda, as best I can, but you also, see the immediate reactions of private equity kills everything that it touches, and here's 1,000 examples, and this and that. And then you see the financial folks who are like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. This is why it's okay. This is why it makes sense. Where do you kind of see this, how it makes sense, how it doesn't? Where do you fall on private equity, college athletics, and maybe what the Big 12 is potentially trying to do here?
Yeah, I think what's interesting is that the idea that the Big 12 private equity deal is like an ownership stake, right? Where a private equity firm comes in, they offer an infusion of capital, and they buy a certain percentage of ownership into the conference, right? Like they would a league or a team, right? This has become very common in sports, both, domestically and internationally. If you remember a few weeks ago, the private equity deal idea that was on the table for athletic departments, offered by two separate firms, was not an ownership stake. They were just saying, we want to infuse capital into your athletic department, right? And then if you make money with our investment, then you're going to have, obviously, to pay us back. There's going to be, sort of like an escalator, interest, whatever word you want to use. But if you don't make money, you don't have to pay us back. Now, that second version is a lot more high risk for the private equity firms, right? And what the conference is looking at is more high risk for the conference side. I think that the athletic department version might be a little bit more stomachable for the sports world or the college sports world, just because there's no ownership stake there, right? But yeah, I mean, the concern is that you get millions of dollars up front when you sell an ownership stake, but not only, is that bill going to come due one day, but also you're giving the private equity firm a certain level of control into your business decisions. And that's what scares people the most, honestly. It's not even really the big check. It's that the firm comes in and, guts your organization and sells it for parts. So, that's not really a clear answer because, again, it just depends on the industry and it depends on the specific contract and situation. But there are a couple different ideas out there that, look, at least in the short term, they're unsurprising because how big-time college sports is basically professional at this point, and private equity has made major inroads into the pro sports world.
So, Amanda, for the side that would be like, hey, we'll invest in if we don't see our money, return right away, that's okay. Would that just be, because that's kind of hard, I'm sure, for anybody to believe that you're not going to be upset, but is it basically like, going in on a stock and it doesn't pan out and like, hey, you cut your losses and that's fine? Is that basically what you're saying as far as that potential option?
Yeah, I mean, look, that is the picture that was painted by the two firms who announced that they were, going to create sort of an arm to offer that. Right. Could there be sort of non-cash assets? Could there be, something else? Yeah, but my my rudimentary understanding, right? Because I'm not an expert in private equity finance, but my rudimentary understanding, and some of my friends have helped me understand that is an option that this industry considers. It's high risk for them, obviously, but it's more palatable to someone, like an athletic director who's not used to a corporate entity, telling them what to do. And an ownership stake gets really wonky, at least at the athletic department level, a little less so on the conference level.
Is this similar to what you hear when somebody hires a law firm, let's say for what could be a wreck or whatever it is, any kind of lawsuit, and the attorneys who represent you say, you don't have to pay us if we lose, but then you split the. Am I going in the right direction here?
I mean, I think so in terms of like the risk reward, right? And the other thing that is being offered in that isn't an ownership stake, but it is access, which actually this could be good for the athletic department, which is access to, the quote unquote brain trust of the private equity firm, right? They're not going to force you to do anything necessarily, or so they say, but they're going to advise athletic departments and schools on how to fundraise and, how to make money and how to keep that money, which many athletic departments don't know how to do, despite the fact that they rake in 9 figures a year. I think that's a good analogy, but, it's like that just means that the more successful you are, the bigger your bill is going to be.
So Amanda Christovich, Front Office Sports, with us on yesterday's stories that came out. Is there also at times a misunderstanding that when people you hear private equity, some who've been a part of it have been a part of business transactions, they get it, they understand it. Is there also a part of it that people don't understand enough about it and they get a little bit uneasy?
Absolutely. I mean, look, I think that especially in the last several years, and look, I'm a journalist, right? So looking at it from the industry of media, there's a lot of concern about, a private equity firm coming in, and there are horror stories all over my industry, for example, right? So it's understandable that even if you're not looking at the ins and the outs of the deal, you're going to have legitimate concerns just because of the reputation of the private equity industry and some, people accusing them, rightly or wrongly, of taking advantage of, companies and industries that are bleeding out and, just kind of selling them for parts, like I said. But yeah, there's also a misunderstanding because, look, I can explain this to you all I want, but I don't have the contracts in front of me. These are all exploratory discussions and offers that are public. The nuts and bolts of these deals is really what is going to determine whether or not the athletic department or conference side is going to be protected. And none of us really know what that is. We only know the broad strokes categories of what types of typical deals, are being offered here.
I thought one of the reactions, I had somebody contact me that said, why would Brett Yormark and the Big 12 do this? I mean, what are they doing? They're selling their soul, and yet it's from a fan of a school that left a conference to go to another conference to make more money. And I know it's a different story, a different analogy, but I thought that was a little bit, wait a minute, what do you think your school's doing?
Well, I would agree with you 100% because, a source that I spoke with yesterday basically said that the reason the Big 12 is doing this is to catch up to the revenue that the Big 10 and the SEC are going to be raking in with their media rights contracts. That is the number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 reason they're doing this because they recognize they want to play with the big boys.
Yeah.
And everybody knows that the Big 10 and the SEC are going to be tens of millions of dollars per school ahead of everybody else. The Big 12 is number 3. And they want to catch up. And Brett Yormark, whether you agree with his approach or not, he's extremely aggressive. He's always been extremely aggressive. He's not interested and frankly doesn't care at all about the sort of, old school, old traditionalism of college sports. He looks at his conference as a company, and he looks at his university presidents as his shareholders, right? I mean, and he just, and this is just me riffing off of like how I've watched him lead the conference the last couple of years. Like, he's running this like a business, and he's making business decisions. He's not interested in purity of college sports, at least when it comes to his conference. Maybe the NCAA lobbying stuff is a different issue.
Mm-hmm.
But, he's doing exactly the same thing that the schools that left this conference are doing. Absolutely. For sure.
Last thing, and Amanda, we always appreciate the insight, the knowledge what you have when it comes to sports business. Was he chosen at the perfect time? It appears that way. Doesn't mean every decision he's made has been completely like, yes, it's not a celebration every time, but the timing of when he arrived, when Bowlesby walked out the door, to what he did with the contract to get the TV deal to undermine what the Pac-12 was trying to do, and all the way up to right now?
Absolutely. I mean, look, I think Bob Bowlesby kind of laid a foundation for him that was a lot more palatable, for example, than perhaps Larry Scott laid for George Kliavkoff, right? To say the least. But yeah, I mean, he came in guns blazing, and he looked at, the TV deal and the money aspect of everything, and he looked at it with a fresh perspective that you hope that someone coming from outside the college sports industry, right? That's why conferences are hiring folks from outside the college sports industry, because they're realizing that the conferences that are, not in all cases, right, but in some cases have been run by these college sports insiders that are obsessed with the ideology of amateurism, that nobody believes still exists, right? And if you believe it exists and you're running your conference that way, you're not going to be very successful because you're up against conferences that are raking in $1 billion. I mean, so I don't know that he came in at the perfect time because it could have gone the other way.
Yeah.
But I think that his perspective was needed at that time, where he was dealt a good hand, knowing schools were coming in, the conference was going to survive. But if he didn't act like this was a 5-alarm fire, signing this media deal and ensuring the Big 12 was the number 3 conference of, in the FBS, then I don't think the conference would be where it is. So yeah, I think his aggressiveness paid off big.
Love the segment. Thank you, Amanda. Have a great weekend. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Amanda Christovich, Front Office Sports, on many things when it comes to the naming rights for the conference, where that is, and also a little bit more insight on the private equity, which we don't know because, as she said, she gave us some ideas. But as also she said, we don't have the details of what might even be negotiated. When we come back, Grayson Grundhaper, 365 Sports, football recruiting analyst, and more. He'll join us. John Curts, who covers K-State, but also the Big 12 from the Kansas City Sports Network a little bit later on. We'll update college baseball. It is 2-2 in the 8th right now. North Carolina, Virginia. In fact, they now are headed to the top of the 9th in the first game up in Omaha. We'll also have a U.S. Open leaderboard a little bit later on as Texas Tech's Oberg leading the tournament with a few holes still left to play. This is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace, $497. That's how much it will cost you every time. It won't cost you $498. It won't cost you $1,100, which is the average of an MRI. $497 or less every single time at IdealMRI.com with Dr. Rob Maxey and his incredible group of partners. And what they also have, which is state-of-the-art imaging, the machine to see what's wrong with your shoulder, your lower back, what happened to your knee, to get evidence of exactly why it is so painful and why it hurts so much. You might get the MRI and show that there's no damage or not nearly as much as what perhaps was the original diagnosis. Get the answer, get the evidence, and also get the MRI for $497 or less at IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace on the southern part of I-35 in Waco.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoke. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets, sirloin steaks, bone-in ribeyes, boneless ribeyes, and even prime rib. Cut specifically the way you want, the thickness that you want. They're all delicious. They have Norwegian salmon, mahi-mahi, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey, variety of cheese, and several options of sausage links, and even regular jalapeno or cheese snack sticks, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef, marinated beef or chicken fajitas, and always large briskets and tri-tip available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and tradition continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-service butcher shop and bakery, open Monday through Saturday. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Carry On Solutions is a full-service IT management service provider and provides professional services for businesses servicing clients in the U.S. and globally. They are authorized partners with Microsoft, Quest, Veeam, NetApp, HP Enterprise, and Cisco Duo. Whether you are outsourcing IT services, merging companies, or wanting to tackle cybersecurity challenges, contact Carry On Solutions. We are IT. Call or email Dave at 832-437-0138 or sales at Carry On Solutions. That's CARRION Solutions.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
All right, we're approaching the 4 o'clock hour. Grayson Grundhafer, 365 Sports, Sikkim365.com, joins us as he does on Fridays. Grayson, let's discuss the offensive lineman from UT Chattanooga. I know that they had the Cash Courtney decommit to Arkansas, where Eric Mateos is, but let's start with UT Chattanooga offensive lineman Truitt and exactly what he brings to the table. He seems to be wanted by a lot of other nice schools. And what kind of an offseason overall now from the transfer portal that Baylor has had in the offensive line depth chart?
Right. So, I mean, this is kind of one that I would say happened relatively quickly. We talked about a little bit on Sikkim 365, the premium side of things, and I've mentioned his name for a little over a month now. He was always a guy that was on the radar for the Baylor staff, but it looked like he kind of took his time with his recruitment, to be honest. I mean, schools like South Carolina, Indiana, Missouri, Arkansas, Virginia were all in on him. And then, of course, this past weekend, he visited Kansas State, and he went ahead and committed to Chris Kleiman and the Wildcats over the weekend. But he had the visit to Baylor lined up still, and he stayed true and took that visit to Baylor and saw what he needed to see from the Baylor program, to be honest. And it was enough to get him to flip from his extremely recent commitment to Kansas State, flip to Baylor. And it's really big for Baylor, I think, as far as what they're trying to build on the offensive line. It's an area they've addressed heavily through the transfer portal, receiving commitments from Omar Igbedian, Kurt Daniker, Colton Thomason, Sidney Fugar, and now Colin Truitt. So they've really spent a lot of scholarship spots on that position, and they're really trying to really anchor that group so that they can move the football next year. Now, Truitt has played a lot of right tackle during his time at Chattanooga, but I think he's going to slide into guard for Baylor. He's about 6'3", 305 pounds, might be a little bit bigger than that. But I think that's where he's going to slide in. I think he could be the starter immediately for Baylor potentially, but at minimum, a really, really good depth piece and a guy that gives them some versatility while also giving them a ton of experience, as he only has one season of eligibility remaining.
So, Grayson, they've done a lot to attack the O-line, as you mentioned. They've added a ton of transfers. So where are they in terms of any further possible additions? Is the roster finally set, or is there still stuff out there? And if so, what remains to you, whether they've addressed it or not, what remains to you the biggest questions? And maybe that's still the O-line.
I think there's still room as far as the scholarship situation goes. I think it's, right around, I would have said one spot this past week, which is obviously what Colin Truitt would fill. But I think there might be a little bit more than that coming off of this week. And so that's still a question that, is yet to be answered. But I do believe there's a couple spots left. Now, as far as, what Baylor may be looking at, potentially the offensive line. Potentially, I think they could be looking at some kind of best player available situations as well. I also think you could look at the roster and maybe they decide to put a walk-on scholarship or something along those lines as well. But I think there's some room there. So I wouldn't say they're done at this very moment, but Colin Truitt definitely gets them closer to that.
Can you try to explain the makeup of who they are now? With, as you mentioned, there's still work to be done. There's always work to be done. But who they are now compared to who they were when they ended last season in the offensive line?
I mean, it's leaps and bounds. I mean, they are so different up front. I mean, everything has changed in so many regards. And yet we still may look at this offensive line and you might see three guys who were starters by the end of last year be the starters this year. And I know some people may not be huge fans of that, but when you look at it from a kind of a different lens and you're talking about guys who are growing up and developing, when I talk about guys like Colton Price or Alvin Ebasele, who were redshirt freshmen last year, asked to play a whole lot last season, a whole lot more than was anticipated. And they ended up being starters by the end of the year. And then you had Campbell Barrington, who came in from BYU last year, had all these expectations and did not perform up to the level that they needed him to at left tackle. So he moved to right tackle and ended the year there. And so you look at those three, you got three guys that I think you feel confident about being in the top 8. It just really comes down to, are those guys going to end up being starters? And then outside of that, you're talking about, upgrades, right? When you look at guys like Sidney Fugar and Omar Bedian and Colton Thomason and Kurt Daniker, you're just talking about some older guys, but then you also are talking about talent, guys who are very talented, who you think come in and maybe raise your ceiling. And I think that's what you get with Colton Thomason, who was, a 4-star guy in his 2023 class, and now just a redshirt freshman, has 4 years of eligibility. And then Sidney Fugar, who athletically is going to really jump off the screen to a lot of people. It's just a matter of, can he develop and put it all together during his time at Baylor, which he wasn't quite able to do at South Carolina. So still some questions. I think overall people should still have questions about the offensive line. But I do think from last year being really bad, one of the worst Power 5 offensive lines in the country, to where they are now, which I think is bordering on being average, is massive. And I know that sounds, maybe pessimistic, saying, oh, they're just average. But when you go from being, outside the top 100 offensive line-wise to being around the 70s, it's huge for your offense as a whole. And so I think they've done a really nice job, and they needed to, frankly.
I just think it's crazy that you need like 6 offensive linemen in a season. That just shows you that's nuts, like to where the development was and just guys not panning out. And I understand changes in coaching as well, which leads me to Cash Courtney and his decommit from Baylor. He is headed to Arkansas, so there's the Eric Mateos relationship. Eric Mateos, the former Baylor O-line coach. So that makes some sense that, there would be some pull there for Cash Courtney. But what does it mean for this recruiting class and what they're eyeing and just kind of all that comes with that?
Right. So, I mean, Baylor's lost 3 offensive line commits in this class at one point or another. And, I mean, that just speaks to the fact that they've had 3 offensive line coaches in 6 months. And it's really hard to recruit that way. And Cash Courtney felt like the one who maybe would be the one that they hung on to, but he ultimately decided to, go rejoin Eric Mateos there at Arkansas. And now Baylor's got to really regroup there. And, to be honest, I'm not extremely optimistic with where they're at right now in the offensive line. I think they have a lot of work to do as far as sending out offers, as far as getting guys on campus. I think they're in a pretty good spot with a couple guys, which is good. But I think ultimately they really need to land guys who are difference makers there. And if they don't do that in this class, then I do think they'll look to the transfer portal again and try to add some guys who are very much like a Colton Thomason, who have quite a few years of eligibility remaining, but for whatever reason, it didn't work out early in their stop elsewhere. I think they could look that direction and also look for, older guys in the transfer portal as well. But as far as high school recruiting goes in this 2025 class, they have a long way to go as far as recruiting the offensive line, and Cash Courtney's decommitment just kind of points even more to that and the kind of uphill battle that Mason Miller has, just given that he hasn't had a lot of time to try to figure this out and try to put it all together. I think by the end of this, they'll be fine, but I'm not, super optimistic that this is going to be a great offensive line class.
Why have they struggled to recruit offensive linemen?
Well, I mean, in this specific situation, I think it just simply comes down to the fact that Mason Miller has had, 3 months to try to recruit guys and, 3 different offensive line coaches in 6 months. That's really tough. And so you're talking about guys that they lost that committed under, with a different coach as their offensive line coach. And so it makes sense that these guys have decommitted, but also on the, Baylor side of things, it's a lot to do with relationships. And, it's asking a lot of a coach to come in and be able to put together an elite recruiting class at his position when there's been so much turnover and so many changes there. And so I think that's kind of what's going on as far as, in the past years. I feel like, there were some misses there as well under Eric Mateos. And so you kind of add that all together. And so you look at the roster and the depth isn't amazing. And then their current recruiting isn't amazing for multiple reasons. It just hasn't been great. And so now they kind of got to reset things, look for some guys to try to bring in on visits, try to find that next wave of recruits. And I think they're doing a pretty good job of that, but they got to turn this thing around pretty quickly because they don't have a lot of time to put this class together. The good news is you do have the transfer portal, which can make up for some of this. And I think it will.
Grayson, they've got these camps going on, these weekend visits. I know they had the first one last week. We talked about that on the podcast, but just, I guess, what are your thoughts now? It's been a few days since we talked. Anything of note or just, I guess, what to be on the lookout for Baylor fans out there curious about the recruiting this weekend?
So there's a few things kind of going on, I would say. I think Baylor's going to actually add their first commit in the 2026 class pretty soon, if not today. So I think they're on the verge of kind of getting that class rolling as well, even though we're a long way away from that, final signing day for the 2026 class. But getting started there would be a huge step in a good direction, I think, for Baylor. Now, as far as visits go, last weekend they landed one commit off of the visits, and that was Chase Collier, the wide receiver out of Florida. Got him locked in. He becomes the second wide receiver commit in the class. And then you kind of look at the rest of the guys who visited, and a lot of them have decisions coming up. Klein Collins, linebacker, Trent Spence, he announced that he's going to be making his decision on Monday, and I think that'll be coming off of a visit to Cal. But I feel pretty good about Baylor's chances there to land a really athletic and a really good fit at linebacker. So that's kind of something to keep an eye on going towards Monday. Outside of that, I mean, you got all these guys are basically looking to make decisions at the end of June or the beginning of July for the most part. So you look at guys like Sheldon Rice, Bryson Weber, Jaden Sanders, Caleb Burns. I mean, these are guys that are high profile guys who Baylor's been recruiting really heavily, and they're going to be making decisions really soon. And then you turn over to this upcoming weekend, it's very much the same thing. Guys like Jackson Blackwell and Jalen Cooper and Leo Almanza. I mean, these guys are trying to make decisions by the end of the month or the very beginning of July. So a lot of movement is going to come over the next 3 weeks. And I would say in general, Baylor did a good job the first weekend. I know people are disappointed with how many commits they landed, but you kind of got to remember that these visits are set well in advance, and a lot of these guys have dates for commitment set as well. And so that kind of extends the process a little bit. Going into this weekend, the biggest things are really the offensive playmakers. I mean, you got Caden Knighton, the running back commit, 4-star prospect. He's committed. He's the only commit on the visit this weekend. But besides him, you also have a 4-star running back in Michael Turner, a 4-star receiver in Ja'Cory Watson, a 4-star receiver in Jalen Cooper, and another 4-star receiver in Jacob Washington. So really heavy focus on the offensive playmakers. Add that in with a guy like Kamarian Morgan, who's out of South Oak Cliff, and he's one of the top 100 prospects in the country at edge. And it kind of tells you how high profile this weekend is. And I know a lot of Baylor fans are going to be really intrigued by two other ones, and that's La Vega offensive lineman, defense lineman Ethan Thompson, and then Lorena defense lineman Jackson Blackwell, because those two guys are local guys and guys that Baylor really, really wants to solidify the nose tackle position. I mean, now it's just kind of about, can the staff land these two guys who know about the Baylor program so well, and they would fit so well in Baylor's defense? Can Baylor ultimately land those guys? Because as we know, landing local guys hasn't been a sure thing in the past, so we'll see if they're able to do that.
All right, so I know that Baylor the season doesn't start till the last week in August for Baylor, first week in September. Do you get a good read on right now, if the season started this weekend, who would be the starting quarterback?
You know, I've been of this belief for a long time now, and I'm still here with it. I still think DeQuan Finn is going to be the starting quarterback that first game. Now, I can't tell you that it comes off of anything that I've heard recently, just kind of about, how things are trending. But I just feel like over the course of spring ball, I felt like things trended his way just a little bit more. And the vibes just kind of told me that he was going to end up being the guy. We'll see if that ends up happening. Sora Robertson definitely had a very good spring camp, and there's definitely a competition there for sure. And I think it's a great thing that's going into the fall. But I still think ultimately DeQuan Finn will be the starting quarterback for Baylor that week one matchup. And I don't think I'm going to waver from that until we hear, something that's confirmed.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Grayson Grunhafer, Sikkim365.com, 365 Sports, recruiting analyst, football analyst, men's basketball, and also the Bearcast co-host with Craig every Tuesday on 365 Sports.
Hey, who doesn't need 5 transfer offensive linemen in off season? That bodes really well.
Yeah.
No, I know. I mean, compared, that's the negative reaction to take. I just, you're like, yeah, well, maybe another one. It's just like, golly, man, that's how out of sorts their O-line was, and you can believe it if you watched last year. I mean, that was just an entire mess, and so it's understandable. It's just I don't know if it's sustainable. That's the thing. But if it works for this 1 year and saves Dave Aranda's job, then that's all that matters. But it's just, man, there's a lot of just combustibility with this football team, and just a lot of uncertainty too. Just as far as where they fall and how good they could potentially be. But yeah, it would be hard to be worse on the offensive line, and yet it's hard to build one when you hire a guy to replace the guy who had been here for 3 years, and then you have him leave almost immediately for the new Alabama gig that's opened up because Saban's retired and DeBoer wants your guy all of a sudden, and so then you're forced to go and grab another guy. It's just like that. You can understand why it's crazy, but it's just like you look at it and you're just going, damn, man, like, well, is this going to work? And if it does, then, Mason Miller and a lot of others will deserve a ton of credit, but I don't love you needing to basically get a whole entire offensive line in an offseason. But they've done that on both sides of the ball, I feel like, to some extent. So it's just part of the trying to rework this roster and make up for misses that you had the last couple of years.
I was told even a couple of 2 or 3 months ago when Kapilovich left for Alabama that the biggest concern needed to be, and this is from somebody that's not really in the athletic department but close enough, that they, of those who he brought in, that, man, they had to work overtime to make sure that those who were brought in did not leave because he left. And I think they've kept him. Now, the Cash Courtney deal is a high school football senior out of East Texas, so that's one thing. You're going to have those decommitments, but that there was a concern that even the kids, the young men who they brought in from other schools, with Kapilovic were going to leave. And so Mason Miller's done a really good job of establishing those relationships. And he told me that he knew that. He knew that, and he knew it would be a challenge. But it seems like he's been able to kind of handle that and move forward and adding, not losing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't fault him. I mean, he just got here, and he's trying to do the best that he can. It's just they're in a really precarious position because they're in, like, no man's land. Like, hey, come with us and build on the future. Can you guarantee that any of you guys will be here after next year? Now, maybe that's okay because this is a year-to-year business now anyways. Like, the idea of people signing up for 4-year scholarships, that's not really the way it works anymore. It's almost like most people are on 1-year deals. But, you know, it's still just it's just hard for my brain to wrap around the lack of, like, actual development time that's now spent. That otherwise you're like, here's our freshman, and he grew up, and then he grew up some more, and now he's playing. It's like, now it's like, oh, the freshman didn't work out. Swipe him out of the way. Hit the portal. Here's 5 new guys. Let's, you know, it's just hard to know what to expect, I think, is the biggest thing, you know. And
I think it's part of it. You're right. It's got to be frustrating. Think about the coaches, but I think that's just what we are.
It's just where we are, and that's fine. It's just a different way of, you know, following along as a fan and as just an observer, is to come to grips with the idea that this is all very temporary for the most part, and the idea of it being a 4 or 5 year thing for each player is out the window entirely now. And so that's the development part, I think, is where a lot of coaches have concerns. When you see guys bouncing around to 3 different colleges and you're like, what, like, stay here, like, maybe you don't win the starting job and you learn from it and you get better from it, and then you blossom into this All-American that, you know, we raised here. But now it's like, you lost a starting job, you're in the portal, you're to the other place, it didn't work out there, you're now. And so that's where we are.
And you wonder where that player would have ended up if he had just stayed where he was in the beginning.
And who's to say, because we have no earthly idea, nor could we ever, and it's not the same for everybody. Like, some guys do need to transfer to go to a better landing spot because they didn't make the right choice initially, or there's a coaching change or whatever. It's just such a different environment is all I'm getting at. And it's just kind of crazy to think about how temporary every single recruiting class is now.
Yes.
Like, and that's why it's hard to get, like, really wrap your arm. Like, the guy decommits the other day, and I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, 2 years ago, or maybe not 2, but 4 years ago, I'd have been like, damn. Like, Cash Courtney, that's a big loss. And now it's like, we might see him at Baylor in a year. Like, he might go, you know what? Arkansas just fired Sam Pittman and Eric Mateo, so hey, what's up, Dave Aranda, after you guys won 7 games, you know? So that's why you don't sever any relationships, for sure. We've seen that roll back around. Lorando Johnson, you know, leaves 2 years ago. He's back a year later after 1 year at Arkansas. So maybe Cash Courtney or whoever else has decommitted, or whatever other programs, examples you want to use. But yeah, the whole sign this guy and develop in that those days are over and done with. And so Jake Trotter can put that on his list as well, as far as things that have changed immensely in the last 3 or 4 years.
And let's not forget now, if Sam Pittman has a bad year and Arkansas is not supposed to be among the upper echelon, or maybe even upper half of that conference, I like him a lot. Eric Mateos is there, who was at Baylor, and who knows if there's a change there. And
I just said that, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. And Eric Mateos might be at South Carolina, Mississippi State. Who knows where he might end up. So, yeah, it's crazy. I imagine your job depends on that, which every college football coach, even those who can just, like, wait for their phone to ring, knowing they're going to get 15 bluest of the blue chips, it's got to be just, like, unbelievably stressful.
And that's why you're trying to, like, project, like, Colorado, for example. I know their fans are very defensive over, like, the feeling around how good they might be. And just the whole Deion thing makes them a little bit extra defensive, let's face it. Like, there's a us against them mentality, and that's all understandable. But why should I put them in the top? Like, if you say Shedeur and Travis Hunter, like, okay, like, that number 1 or number 2 best wide receiver quarterback combo, like, that's 2 of 11 positions on the field at one time, mind you. But, you know, you can see where that gives them a little ammunition and say, okay, well, best quarterback maybe in the league, he's in the argument. Best all-purpose player, Travis Hunter's probably the favorite there. But all the rest of it, like, you bring in 40-something, like, how the hell are we supposed to know what that's going to look like? How does Deion even know what that's going to look like? So if somebody says, let's put them at, like, the bottom for now and just see how it goes, That's understandable, and it's you got to do that with almost everybody now with the amount of transfers. It's that much more unpredictable, I guess, is what I'm saying. It's hard to know what you're really getting, and sorting out through the portal.
Yeah, it's got to be tough that you wake up and you got a text from an 18-year-old or 17-year-old or whatever, or your offensive lineman is a starter. It's nuts, and they that's part of their job. They know what they're doing, getting into it, but it's changed a lot in the last just really handful of years. When we come back a little bit later on, we'll have John Curts, but let's get to a cup. By the way, we'll update you on the College Baseball World Series. The first game is over on a walk-off, bottom of the ninth base hit. That is next and more. This is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace, hometown grocery store, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco. Father's Day coming up this weekend. Have you ever had a tomahawk ribeye steak? It looks like a club. It looks like what the Vikings used to eat back in the day, and it could be what you eat this weekend. A tomahawk ribeye at $15.99 a pound, but also they still, because it's still in season, live crawfish, 30-pound sacks of live crawfish at Waco Custom Marketplace available. You can't get anything for this weekend because you have to order by 6 on Wednesday, but inside the store, back towards the butcher shop, you have all of what you need in case you can find crawfish elsewhere. But if you order by Wednesday at 6, you could pick up live crawfish at Waco Custom Marketplace on Friday afternoon or on Saturday when they're open. They have large crab claws. They have the corn, the red potatoes, what you need, and also the seasoning that you need when you do a live crawfish boil. Also, on top of that, there's a full-service bakery, kolaches every day available. And then with whatever they don't sell, they have bags of kolaches frozen in the freezer section off to the left when you walk through the front door. They have what you need if you want cold beer or wine or just soft drinks. That's there too. Waco Custom Marketplace, marinades, seasonings, and more at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
All right, Paul's out. He's out today, out all of next week on vacation. We'll need to fix that, but it's good to hear his name. He and Amanda are on their way to spend some time in California. Final score, North Carolina beats Virginia, battle of ACC teams, 3-2, bottom of the 9th base hit to win it. Tonight, Florida State, Tennessee will play. First pitch at about 6 o'clock tomorrow. North Carolina State, Kentucky at 1. A&M and Florida will play first pitch at 6. That is tomorrow. Now, remember the Rocco's Jell-O shots, right? Well, the Tennessee Volunteer Club, this is an NIL group. Before you head to the game, for all you folks at Omaha, stop by the famous Rocco's, 3:30 until 5:30 Central. Hang out with fellow Vol fans, shop new baseball merchandise and memorabilia, and partake in the Jell-O Challenge. Go Vols, beat FSU. Garrett, you're telling me this is an NIL thing, right? They're going to raise some money with these Jell-O shots?
Yeah, so part of the portions of this will be matched. So it's $5 a shot, and then they'll match it. This group will match the $5 for every shot taken, so you'll get $10. Like, it'll be $10 in total. 5 goes to NIL Collective, and 5 just for the shot. We knew somebody was going to do something like this.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tradition. Man, good on Rocco's for getting all the free advertising they now get from everybody, because we all just sit there and just talk about them, and now we're promoting their NIL event. But, yeah, it's a smart idea. Get advantage any way you can, and certainly College World Series themes, you can't get more on brand at this point, I guess, than incorporating the Jell-O shot challenge. So it's smart. I mean, smart way to raise more money it's what we know it all revolves around. So, yeah, that's just another unique idea, thinking outside the box.
Last year, LSU, remember, went nuts with 60-some thousand people buying them even from afar. If you had 60,000 shots this year, if you're around the tournament and your fans do that, you'd raise about $300,000.
Oh, yeah.
With the $5 per shot, Jell-O shot donation going to the NIL. Speaking of college athletics, Eric Musselman was the head coach at Arkansas, took the job at USC, and USC rented a beach house. They called it the Portal House, where the staff lived and recruited. Every time they FaceTimed to recruit, when they were outside or they went outside, and made sure that the recruits on FaceTime saw the beach and the beautiful views in the background. It's find a way, right? Get their attention.
I think most people know that LA is on the beach, but it's a scenery backdrop that if you got it, flaunt it, I guess. And sure, that's going to be a pull for some recruits out there, is seeing the views and seeing what could potentially be their living situation if they're high profile enough, I'm sure. But yeah, that's what you do if you live in LA, is you flaunt the beaches and some of the other parts as well. So I just think that's common sense and good use of your materials if you're Eric Musselman and company.
So there we are with that. When we come back, John Curts, he covers the Big 12, covers K-State. And what?
Just keep it here. I'm going to call him.
Oh, okay. All right. And also from the Kansas City Sports Network, he'll join us here momentarily. Art Strickland will join us from the U.S. Open at Pinehurst #2, where there were still about the same amount of players under par. Last time I looked at like 18 players under par. I thought they might end up with no more than about 5, but there is still the weekend to come and some treacherous drop-offs around the greens at Pinehurst. Scotty Scheffler is right on the edge, right now below the edge of the possible cut line at 5 over par, which I think will go up to 5 over par, and he should be safe for the weekend despite where he is, where everybody else is at the top. We're now joined by John Curts. John, thank you very much. Craig Smoke, David Smoke, 365 Sports. Wanted to have you on to talk mainly about K-State football, but how much of a wow factor was the Coleman Hawkins decision today?
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on. It was the culmination of, I would say, like a long dance here between K-State and Coleman Hawkins. It was sounding like leaving his visit, the most likely scenario was that he was going to be a Wildcat, but it kind of dragged out over the course of this whole week. So I think it was a matter of when more so than if in the minds of a lot of us, but it's obviously great to get the confirmation on it. And then, you know, I know the big headline that comes along with it too is the price tag that was. I have to give credit to his agent for getting that out there, because I think there's literally one person in the entire college sports ecosystem who is happy about that number actually being out there, and it is probably his agent. I'm not sure that K-State's thrilled with that, but anyway, it's a huge get, and I think he's the headliner of the class coming here at the very, very end, and he's one of 4 top 50 transfers that they now have. So Jerome Tang has definitely secured a lot of talent. I mean, you can argue about what the fit is going to be with the roster, and they're going to have to figure some of that out, obviously. But they have a ton of talent and versatility to work with for sure.
John, did you know that K-State had that amount to flex, for example, in NIL? Did that come as a surprise to you? And I understand why most people don't want it out there because of just the, you know, now the way that can be flaunted and just talked about and used by other agents and whatnot. But did that surprise you at all, just seeing that amount coming from K-State, or were you pretty much already aware that they kind of had that muscle to flex?
Yeah, well, it's not just, you know, other agents and things like that. It's at K-State. You're thinking, well, we got a whole locker room here to manage, for one, in basketball. And then, hey, we've got a pretty talented quarterback over there named Avery Johnson. Now, I don't know what his specific total is that he has, but I would imagine that, you know, some of the football guys that are making top dollar are looking over like, okay, so like basketball's got that. You know what I mean? Yeah. These are things that I think people are all having to think about, and that the average person doesn't think about a lot with NIL. Like, there's so many ripple effects of it. So for a number of reasons, yeah, I'm not sure that they're pleased. But yes, I did know that K-State had that kind of money to throw around, and I think Jerome Tang has been really demanding in making sure that he got the kind of support that he felt like he needed to put together a championship roster. I mean, he hasn't shied away the entire time he's been there about talking about a national championship, and he wanted to make sure he had the backing for that. And the word early on in the offseason was he was going to get the backing for that. And his flirtation with Arkansas, you know, probably helped with some of that too, created a little bit of extra leverage. But yeah, I knew it. And we had more or less said that. I mean, particularly if you're really following like the Three Mile podcast and what we have said on there. But I understand everybody seems to say like, hey, we're doing better in NIL. We're really stepping up our NIL game. And so I get that a lot of the reaction from fans when they hear that is like rolling their eyes like, okay, you know, everybody says that. So like, I get it. I get why that would have been the reaction from a lot of people. But K-State has put their money quite literally where their mouth is, both on the football and basketball front. And just have to give credit to a lot of the donors who have really, really stepped up. Now, you better go win with it, because now you've taken a lot of resources and put together this roster that I think, you know, I heard Rob Doster from the Field of 68 today call it a top 15 roster in the country. You got the pieces, you got the ammo, you said that's what you needed. Now go make it happen. You know, there's obviously a little bit of pressure there.
John, what were your thoughts when you first saw the story that both either Brett McMurphy, Dennis Dodd, and others had on the Big 12 naming rights, and then also the possibility of private equity being involved in the future?
I was not totally stunned, you know, and I don't say this to really like toot my own horn, but it was just reading some of the tea leaves. Like, I have been talking about these things as possibilities for like a couple of weeks on my show. Now, I was saying it more in the context of, I thought individual schools within the Big 12 might be exploring, for instance, the private equity piece. And I'll start with the private equity piece because I do think it's funny. The naming rights thing took off so much more on social media because it's a made for social media topic, right?
Yeah.
But it pales in comparison to the private equity thing. And it's almost a little frustrating to me. I'm like, people like, the discussion here is private equity. That is a massive deal. The naming rights thing, I get why people care, but this is where your focus should be, is on private equity. I heard Dan Wetzel dropped the idea. He first really planted that idea in my head probably like 3 weeks ago on the Yahoo College Sports podcast, or College Football Inquirer podcast, which is excellent. And I really enjoy it. And he kind of said, like, hey, you know, this private capital thing seems to be coming in here. They say they're talking to 7 to 10 schools. Everybody knows Florida State is like openly discussing this possibility, but like, why, if you're a Big 12 school, why would you not look into this? Because you're the one that really needs the infusion of cash to compete right now. And I don't know that many people were thinking specifically about the Big 12 before that. And that really flipped a light switch in my head where I was like, hey, I mean, Brett Yormark seems like a guy who would have some experience in that world. He's clearly the guy who is open to doing things like this, being innovative, and he certainly is aggressive. And the Big 12 is the perfect candidate here because they need an extra $20-30 million a year to like legitimately compete. So I had kind of started piecing that together. Like, this would not really shock me. I don't know that I expected it to come out like when it did. And I didn't expect it to be like a league wide thing, but I figured Big 12 schools might be interested in this. I get the debate. And like, I thought you guys had an excellent segment on it yesterday, just breaking down both sides of it. Like, I completely understand this side of it that would say like, hey, this is trying to, you know, like what Craig was saying yesterday, you're trying to spend outside of your budget. You're going to get in trouble. Eventually the Big Ten and the SEC, if you make legitimate headway with this, they're going to just do the same thing and you'll never be able to afford what they're doing. I also just want to say on the other side of it, I think they are, at least you have to commend them for being aggressive and trying. They're not going to just lie down. And I tend to lean a little bit that way where I'm like so intrigued by this to see if it works. And I just appreciate their attitude after years of the Big 12 being a doormat and reactive and laying down. And I give Brett Yormark a little benefit of the doubt, but I recognize and understand that it's very scary and it could lead everything down a really rough path. I think the thing that I just want people need to understand, because I saw a lot of this where I just feel like people knee-jerk react to private equity and say, well, Brett Yormark's an idiot. This is a terrible idea. Like, why would you do this? You don't need to do this. People need to, it needs to be drilled through their head. Like, if you do not do this, 2 years from now, like Ollie Gordon, Jalen Daniels, Avery Johnson, like the star power that you have in the conference, it's going to be next to impossible to hang on to guys like that. Or certainly the amount of guys, you know, Noah Fafita, Teteroa McMillan, like guys like that in the conference, would be really tough to hang on to them if you're not able to meet that $22 million revenue sharing number. And I don't think people grasp how quickly that's coming up, how massive of a problem that is for Big 12 athletic departments and their financial situation right now. And just the reality of, yes, this may be signing your soul over to the devil. If you don't do it, you're going to be a legitimate minor league within the next 2 years. Whereas I know there's jokes about how you are right now, but you're still relatively competitive. It would be another step down if you're not able to do that. So I think people really need to understand that when we're discussing all of this.
Yeah, and I had more time to flesh it out, and appreciate you listening as always, and vice versa. And you know, I think I said earlier in the show today of like you absolutely credit Yormark for trying to figure out ways to, like when he made the business comment a couple weeks ago, like this is what he was talking about. He was talking about any number of things that could add money. And so here's a couple of examples of that. And you're right. Like just because the SEC or Big Ten might go, oh, that's working for them, let's do that now, it doesn't mean you can't do it. Like you don't not do things just because others might do it. And I kind of landed on that last night. But yeah, I definitely commend him for trying to think outside the box. And I think, John, that there's definitely, it's weird, there's like Big 12 like detractors out there. I don't know what Yormark did to like offend so many people or not, but I feel like some of the pushback is people like, not that they necessarily hate the idea, but they kind of hate that the Big 12 came up with the idea and might actually gain some ground, is kind of how I read it from some sides as well.
Well, that is one of the most frustrating parts of the whole day yesterday for me, was seeing that and a lot of jokes being made. And I get why the jokes are being made, you know, like, hey, get ready for the Big 12 championship game or the All-State 12 championship game presented by, you know, and then there's just 18 sponsors on everything. Yeah. UCF doesn't even have a name anymore and they're sponsored, all that. I get it. And I understand why there's criticism of it, because like private equity, and I mean, I think we can all agree, like private equity in college sports is not ideal. Mm-hmm. Like that is not a good thing. Nobody would really want that. But the Big 12 is the one that's at the center of it right now. So it's taking all these shots from people like, oh, the Big 12 is ruining college sports or taking us down this terrible path. And what is the Big 12 doing? Jumping the shark. Well, really, it's not the Big 12 that has jumped the shark. The Big 12 is merely reacting to the greed of the SEC, Big 10, and the TV networks that have put the Big 12 in this position. You know, I mean, if Texas and Oklahoma were still in the conference, the Big 12 would not be flirting with private equity right now. The Big 12 would not be about to be the All-State 12 in all likelihood, because they would be on more equal footing with everybody. But they have been painted into a desperate corner. You've already killed one conference, and you've got another one here that's painted into a corner. Like, what are we supposed to do? You know, I mean, there should be more criticism for like the Big 10 and the SEC corralling the college football playoff revenue the way that they have in their corner if you're going to go after the Big 12, because the Big 12 is just responding to what everybody has done to it and put it in this position to have to do it. So, yeah, that is, I agree with you. That is a part that is kind of maddening with all of this. I'm like, just don't blame the Big 12. They are really just kind of a symptom of the overall issue that is going on here, which is basically greed, and that whole march has been led by the SEC, Big 10, and the TV networks.
Do you think that either if the Big 10 or the SEC had come up with this idea or announced this first, it would have been thought of as brilliant?
I'm sure there would still be some pushback, but I think that you get more benefit of the doubt, right? I mean, Greg Sankey more or less serves as the commissioner of college football at this point. You know, I just kind of picture it like Tony Petitti is just sort of standing there attached at the hip with him doing whatever it is that Greg Sankey says. So he's really the guy. I think he garners so much respect that people would be a little bit more open to it, yes. I do agree with you guys. I mean, that's a fair enough point, and maybe some people would say that's Big 12 sour grapes. But I think when you are at the top and people are already really just bowing at the altar, it would change the tenor of it to an extent. Don't get me wrong, there would definitely still be people that would not like it, but I do think it would be messaged a little bit differently. And if the SEC and the Big 10 decide to do it now on down the road, it will certainly be messaged differently, because then they'll be, well, you know, the Big 12 started it, so they're just gonna go pile on to that. And you know, even I heard Sankey's comments about it yesterday, just kind of saying like, well, you know, we better be careful. And it just, I don't know. Anything that guy says tends to get me worked up, but it's all because I know that just he is the one that has created this situation, and then to kind of come back around and be like, well, you know, I don't know about you guys doing this risky stuff. Well, look, man, you stole from us. You took Texas and Oklahoma, so this is the reaction in kind, my friend. I'm sorry.
I think that those guys like that at this point are just like, why don't you die? Like, will you just die already? You know, and like here they are just as resilient as ever, and now coming up with other ideas that very well others may follow. So yeah, it's going to be fun to see, you know, the naming rights and the private equity and kind of how all that follows. But yeah, like with the Big 12 story comes out, and then there's 3 other conferences that are like Conference USA is looking at naming rights, and the Americans looking at naming rights. So yeah, that's going to be fun to track.
Yeah, it is interesting. And right, the Big 12 does this or needs to do. They got to find a way to get some more scratch. They got to find a way to get more money, whether it's $2 million or $20 million per team. They have to be able to at least play or compete somewhat within the same universe.
We made fun of the Rose Bowl folks who could not budge on the kickoff times, and in some of the Pac-12 stuck in the mud kind of ideas. At this point, tradition, as much as we can maintain it, John, is great, but at this point, tradition's kind of already halfway out the window. So if you're the Big 12, you got to do what you got to do, man. At this point, that's kind of how I feel about it. Just to kind of encapsulate all my feelings is, you know, don't massively change the sport, but yeah, if you want to change the conference for some naming rights or have an influx of money somehow, and you feel like you can pay it off, then by all means do whatever you can to keep this thing chugging along.
100%. And I think that is something where maybe we as people in Big 12 country and Big 12 fans have a little different. We are maybe more jaded to everything now than your general college football fan is, and that probably is some of the difference in reaction here. Because to me, it's like I gave up hope long ago that tradition and what is good for the sport and anything like that actually matters anymore. I mean, that left if it hadn't already, it left in 2021 in July when Texas and Oklahoma left the conference, and we saw what the reaction was to the Big 12 being on life support at that point in time. So we, I think, are just so conditioned to like, yeah, man, this is what happens. You're going to have to fight, scrap, and do things like this. If you're a Big 10 or an SEC fan, like, yeah, you're like sort of aware that stuff has been going on in college football, but in your world, things have just been getting better and better. And, like, you're fine, and this all seems great. The playoffs exciting, and now we've got more matchups against big brands. Like, to you, it's still much more like a utopian kind of college football society if you're not caring about those who are below you on the totem pole. So in Big 12 country, I think we're a little more like, yeah, this makes sense. You got to do it. Whereas it's still more jarring for people that are not in the position where they're desperate enough to have to do it. Yeah. And on the naming rights thing, I mean, it makes sense. Like, would I prefer it to be the Big 12 rather than the All-State 12? Yes, I would. Is $3 million per school a ton of money, like life-changing money for these schools? No, it's not. But if we're being honest with ourselves, like, what brand value does the Big 12 like really truly have? I mean, for most of its lifespan, it's been kind of made fun of. It's been poked fun of. There are many other conferences that use the Big. The 12 has not made sense for a long time because you haven't had 12 teams for a long time, and now you've got 16. So to me, that, again, kind of falls under the same category. It's not sacred to me. It's fine if they can make some extra money that way. And look, I'm a K-State fan. K-State sold a home game against one of their rivals to go make $2.25 million to go play it in Ireland. Like, right. It's the world that we live in right now. I'm just conditioned to being used to it, I think.
Yeah, it is a conference. I mean, it's been attacked, but also allowed itself to be attacked. And it was always late on everything, it seemed like, reactive rather than proactive. But I got a question about realignment. It seems like no matter what, and Craig brought this up when your mark was quoted a week or two ago about open for business. And you know this, John, there are some that are on the Twitterverse that just jump at the possibility of being able to throw things against the wall about realignment. I know you stayed away from, like, jumping the shark. It's still something that we know might be there, but do you feel like it has calmed down for now?
Yeah, it feels like a little bit, I guess, outside of a stray Utah rumor here or there. But if we can keep retired New York Post columnists out of things, I think maybe it has settled down a bit for right now. And, like, it's tough, I feel like, in our space especially because, you know, it drives a lot of interest and intrigue, but at the same time, as like a fan and just someone who wants, again, what's good for the sport, I think it would be better if things did just calm down for a little while right now. I think the next thing is we're all just waiting on the ACC, and we're waiting on what's going to happen with Florida State and Clemson in particular. I will even say I'm, like, more open to thinking now that there is a legitimate possibility that the ACC, if they were to lose 4 to 6 schools, could try to build back something, you know, whether that's going to be more like that, like Ivy League light kind of a league there, if they would, you know, try to backfill with some other kind of G5-ish sort of schools right now. Like, I have opened a bit more to that possibility that maybe it's not totally inevitable that the conference completely collapses. But I think at this point, like, we know, I mean, Florida State, Clemson, and North Carolina are going to be gone. Beyond that, we'll see what happens. Doug Rohan, who I know you guys have had on too, I mean, he's done a really good job of breaking down a lot of stuff within that case. But talking to him, I'm not sure that I feel like anything's happening in an expedited fashion. I mean, I think it's going to drag on for a really long time. At least, I mean, 6 months to a year minimum for that before we have a real resolution there, which will be the next big domino, I think, to fall. So until then, yeah, we're probably just sitting here in kind of a holding pattern. But, I mean, there will always be speculation, and I understand why everybody likes to do it, why it's fascinating and entertaining, and completely understand. But, yeah, I think for tangible moves, we're probably going to have to sit and wait for a minute.
Sure. John, don't want to let you go without asking about I know we'll have plenty of preseason poll talk and things like that, but we've been doing our own little power rankings, just kind of starting to take a look at the actual football. It seems like if you were to take 100 ballots of voters, that K-State, Utah would be in some order of 1-2 on like 95 of those ballots, I feel like, at least. And maybe that's a tad bit high, but 90% I think would be valid because they just seem like they're the two clear-cut favorites. Do you take any particular, I guess, defense to Utah being placed above a K-State for some people? And do you view it the same way, or who do you view as like maybe rattling those cages a little bit?
Yeah, I think to me, that's the way I would view it. I think I would actually, the more I really sit and think about it, I kind of think there are 3 teams that should be in that top tier and just barely above your tier 2. I think Utah, K-State, and Kansas, to me, are the 3 that belong there. Now, Kansas is very contingent on Jalen Daniels' health, quite obviously. But they have such a manageable schedule, so much coming back on offense. And, it's hard not to just think the world of Lance Leipold as a head coach. K-State, I think the consistency as a program combined with having Avery Johnson elevating the ceiling of the team at quarterback is enough for me to say, they absolutely have Big 12 championship as a ceiling there. And Utah, it's just a lot of respect for the program. I know the Utah relationship has been a little bit contentious, but if you're talking about like the football program and purely what they've accomplished, and Cam Rising himself, again, health contingent, but if he's going to be anywhere near totally healthy this year, I think they absolutely, I would give them the nod as if I were filling out my ballot right now, which I always make the joke, they send it to me every year, and I always feel like I'm not well-versed enough at this point in time to give you, especially a great all Big 12 team, so I end up not filling the things out. But I would go Utah 1. They've won the Pac-12 2 of the last 3 years. Kyle Whittingham is, he's a dog. He's a great, great head coach. Cam Rising, great quarterback, and they've just earned that respect as a program, I think, to me, to be there. So then obviously, your next year, your Oklahoma State, Iowa State, Arizona, they're knocking on the door. Arizona would have been in serious contention for me before the coaching change to be the number 1 in the league, even with Utah coming in. But I do have some questions about what they've lost and then just what Brent Brennan's going to be as a head coach. So that's kind of how I'm seeing it right now. I don't take offense to anybody who's not going to put K-State there as the Big 12 champ, because I think they have that potential. But in fairness, there are some holes, and we do need to see Avery Johnson go out and do it and really truly elevate the team over an entire season. So that's kind of where I'm at on it right now.
All right, one more thing, and we've had you on for a long time. We appreciate it. We had Chris Kleiman on yesterday, had a chance to visit with him. I even shared a text or two with you to kind of get some insight on maybe what's being said in Manhattan. Has the state of Kansas ever been in this kind of shape with their 2 football coaches being hot commodities and both appear to be damn good?
I'm having to think back here. No, I think the short answer is no. There was a period of time during Bill Snyder's first tenure where he overlapped with Glenn Mason.
Right.
At Kansas, Glenn Mason was a pretty solid head coach there. And then there was a brief moment of time when Mark Mangino was on his way out the door where Bill Snyder was just getting it back ramped up, 2009, 2010. When Snyder I guess 2010 was Turner Gill. So I guess you had one season then, that 2009 season, where those 2 overlapped, but not where they're at the peak of their powers right now, like Lance Leipold and Chris Kleiman are. And it really is funny. The rivalry has just drastically changed because of K-State basketball and Kansas football right now with where everything's at. Even today, Coleman Hawkins, for those who don't know, is I think Trollman Hawkins is his nickname. I heard the Field of 68 guys say that. He's very into doing a little bit of trolling, and he's been going after Hunter Dickinson already and did plenty when those 2 were playing in the Big Ten. That's even adding another element to the rivalry. You had Handshake Gate last year with Bill Self and Jerome Tang. Tang has played 500 basketball against Bill Self so far, which elevated that rivalry. Then on the other side, obviously football. Lance Leipold and those guys, they've been nipping at K-State's heels and obviously have a great program and a lot of consistency, and he's doing it kind of in a similar Bill Snyder sort of fashion at Kansas right now. And that's basically what Chris Kleiman has been doing at K-State too. So it's just wild to me how on fire the rivalry is now, when it was pretty dead for a long time. K-State would just roll over Kansas in football, and you kind of knew in basketball, K-State will win here or there, but Kansas was going to be generally the dominant force there. I think between personalities that have been injected into the rivalry lately and just the sheer winning on both sides that wasn't happening before, it's at its best right now.
What a great segment, John. Thank you very much for your time. Have a great weekend. Appreciate it. We'll see you in Vegas. Are we going to see you in Vegas?
I am going to be in Vegas.
There you go.
So looking forward to that.
We'll see you there at Big 12 Media Days. John Curts, Kansas City Sports Network. A ton of topics, questions, and discussion from him today.
Yeah, I always love hearing from John. He does great work as well. I think the Big 12's got a lot of, interesting folks to be able to listen to, like John, and enjoy like all the various reporters that we have on here, and appreciate his insight and his thoughts on a variety of different topics that we just touched on. So yeah, like I said earlier and kind of got into there with him, it's one of those things where, you initially kind of balk at something you hear because it's just outside the box and it's not what you're kind of accustomed to. But, man, I'm all for tradition. But I think if you're the Big 12, like, you want tradition to an extent, but you also can't just freeze at the thought of tradition and, we can't change. We can't possibly do anything, because that's how you're just going to die on the vine. And I think that's become very clear. So, yeah, outside the box thinking and actions can rub people the wrong way, at least initially. But I think that, once you kind of sort through the smoke, there is still some questions to be answered about the private equity. But, like, the naming thing and some of that, you really sit and think about, you're like, that's exactly what they need to be doing. That's exactly their only options really are to do things like that. And it's easy to say when, you're Vanderbilt fan. Why do I always pick on them? You're
so easy.
Penn State fan, and you're like, how trashy. Why would you do that? It's like, sorry you weren't born into a conference that's, what I mean? Like, it's been around for forever, and that you've got $40 million extra by simply existing. Like, not everybody has that luxury.
When did Penn State join the Big Ten?
They haven't been in there that long. I should have used anybody else, but I didn't want to use, like, the same dummies. No. So, like, okay, Michigan. It's easy for you to sit there when you have every weapon at your disposal, or Texas fan or Oklahoma fan or whoever is in that upper club that has never had to worry about the issues that are facing a lot of these schools right now. It's easy to thumb your nose, but if you were in the same position, you'd be doing the same thing. You'd be acting to do the same thing. It's survival of the fittest, and we saw what inaction did to the Pac-12, did we not? So I think we've all learned from that lesson. And Brett Yormark going out and being aggressive kept the Big 12 not only intact last summer for the foreseeable future, but helped in a roundabout way to kill another conference. Not that he dealt the final blow, because the traditionalists that scream about that, like Big Ten fans, were the ones that slit the throat. So it's amazing how that works, right? Like how you stabbed as much as anybody or in the SEC and helped create the whole situation. But the moment somebody does something that's like not traditional to simply survive, oh my God, what's happening to college athletics? Like, spare me your pearl clutching and this fake outrage. It's always been about money. It's always been sleazy. It's always been a little bit greasy, and that's not changed. It's just more pronounced than ever. So, yeah, I don't blame Brett Yormark or anybody for going, what's a conference name for $30, $40 million when we're $50 million behind? Hell yeah, let's be the All-State 12. Like, let's chip away and do the best we can. And you know what? That's what he was hired to do. Be mad at it if you want to. I think you're just rubbed the wrong way by the fact that some of it's kind of brilliant. I don't agree with everything. I don't agree with Big 12 Mexico, because I think that that's something that, like, initially you can get some good pub off that, but, like, the payoff for that is, like, 20 years down the line. And I don't think he's going to be the commissioner in 20 years. He might not be the commissioner in 5 years. But I know he's done a hell of a job in the couple of years that he's been around and breathing some life into what was a lifeless conference and making things interesting and not really having crossed any serious lines if you think about it. I mean, he's not done anything that's, like, I think, unethical or things of that nature or committed a crime of it. He's just doing things a little bit different. And for traditionalists, that rubs them the wrong way. But the moment tradition benefits you, you seem to have no problem with it.
What would have happened had he not jumped the shark and gotten the television extension with ESPN
well, that's not
and
jumping
Fox?
The shark.
Huh?
That wouldn't be jumping the shark.
Okay, what if he wouldn't have jumped ahead of the Pac-12 and not been able to get that done?
Right, they're not in the same place at all.
Just like, it's going to be okay.
I mean, and like I said, not to say that every move he makes is one of, like, pure brilliance. I don't think that way at all. But I do think that to see some of the pushback over the last 24, 48 hours, granted, some of it's just having fun because it's a goofy thing. It's like, yes, it is funny to say, here is the Big 12 championship game brought to you by WWE, powered by, Fruit Loops and the All-State Conference. Like, that is a little bit funny, and
if
it's
you're
fun.
If you're going to use a cereal, use my favorite one. Lucky Charms.
Lucky Charms, okay. Yeah, I love Lucky Charms. The marshmallows mostly. It's just what we all think
magically delicious.
But,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
But yeah, I think that can be a little goofy, but then you realize it's like, what did you just ask Chris Kleiman about yesterday? The Pop-Tarts Bowl and the amount of Pop-Tarts. So it's like, we're already kind of doing that anyways and have been. So yeah, I just think that there's no threat of you going and catching anybody, but there is a threat of you biting into the pie a little bit more than people think that you should be able to bite into it. And for some reason that rubs like just college football fans in some places the wrong way, which I don't understand because I'm not a fan of the powers that be. Well, I'm a fan of a league, if anything.
People like to those who are the dogs, they don't know if they want you in their neighborhood. And if you sneak into their neighborhood, however you do it, they want to like fight back. Somebody asked us a question about, well, I hate the fact, what if the Big Ten or the SEC end up doing the same thing, whether they do or not? I would rather be proactive than reactive in almost anything I've ever done or we do or what. Secondly, people stealing what you do as a compliment is a compliment. And so I'd rather be the one that starts it, that has the idea that everyone might go look at, oh, wait a minute, and then all of a sudden you watch in the next 5 or 10 years, everybody else has a name attached to their conference, even those with all the cash.
I initially had that kind of thought as well, but I came to this conclusion ultimately is, for one, if the SEC or the Big Ten or whoever else is having fun at the expense of the Big 12, even though now multiple conferences who are in the same position as them, Conference USA, for example, are going and looking at doing the exact same thing, I say, all right, well then we better never see a name attached to your conference, because the moment they do that, then it's just going to point out the pure hypocrisy of their BS outrage. So, yeah, I want to see Big Ten fan who's, pooing all over your mark right now, and about 2 years when the Big Ten goes, damn, we can make like another $100 million and increase our gap again because we, name it a little bit different. So it's the Big Ten presented by so-and-so. It's the same thing. So, yeah, if you're that high and mighty that you don't need to do it, then don't do it. But I guarantee you most of them will see the money like anything else in this whole enterprise and go, yeah, we're going to do that now as well. So either you're going to be hypocrites, or it's a win-win for the Big 12. Either you're going to be hypocrites and go do the same thing, or they close the gap a little bit and they gain $2 million per school. So I think it's a win-win either way. And yeah, you're never going to fully, close that gap ultimately, but you can't do it for sure if you don't try to do anything. And so that's where I ultimately landed with the whole naming rights thing in particular. I still need to know more about the private equity, and I think there's a lot of details that are missing in that conversation for everybody talking about it right now. I don't think anybody's really got a full grasp of what exactly we're talking about. But I think if you're the Big 12, you have no choice but to go and be proactive, and sitting on your hands is just going to be a quicker route to being farther behind than you've ever been before. So, yeah, I think, sure, they might copy you, but if they don't, then you gained a little bit, and if they do, then it just shows that you're probably doing some really cool things that now people want to, piggyback off of.
J.G. Nielardo, copying is not a compliment, it's laziness. No, you misunderstood what I meant. And thanks for saying that. Having someone copy you is a compliment, is what I mean by that. That means that you're doing something right. I remember a coach telling me this a long time ago. In the NFL, they have more copycats than anybody in any sport. They will copy any kind of scheme or whatever, a formation, an alignment.
How many teams in the Big 12?
All the time.
Yeah, how many teams in the Big 12 run a version of Iowa State's defense at this point?
Exactly right.
Exactly every one of them practically. So, yeah, I think it's one of those things where, okay, if you want to sit there and see what the Big 12 or CUSA or whatever did and you go and do the same thing, then I think that just shows that they did something pretty cool, and now others want to follow up and copy that. So I think that's a compliment, yeah, like you said, more than anything else.
Yeah, JG, I think appreciate you responding, but it goes, no need, David, unless you feel the need. I know copying is more than what you said and didn't say. No, that's what I wanted to explain. Thanks for a lot of you. What a great day today in the chat room. And also, we would like to, and we haven't said this, I don't know if you guys did it while I was gone, that all of those who are watching us now on Twitter, watching 365 Sports on Twitter, which has become very much another part of what we do on an everyday basis, not just what we do on YouTube. All right, when we come back, we'll get to a couple more topics. At 5:25 or so, Art Strickland, Golf Digest. No, yeah, he's been at the Golf Digest, but PGA Tour columnist will update us on Pinehurst and the Open. Who's going to make the cut? Will it go to +5? It looks like it will. That would mean Scotty Scheffler and a couple of others would get into the weekend. Who won't make the weekend? How about the story with Theegala, who was 7 over? He's 5 under right now, today. All of that and more. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. The 2023 Dodge Charger Challenger, $13,000 off MSRP. Charger GT, save $10,000. $495 HP Scat Pack. Incredible $9,000 off MSRP. Enjoy 90 days to make your first payment on top of that. 2024 Jeep Compass under $30,000. Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland, $13,000 off. Summer Chrysler event, including the 300 Touring, the 2023, starting at under $30,000, up to $10,000 off the 300 Touring L. Also, the 2024 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab, save $15,000. No payments for 90 days. Father's Day weekend, there's a gift for you, a gift for your dad at Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Alan Samuels Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Welcome back to 365 Sports. Speaking of the traditions and upholding the traditions in college football, maybe we should update you on the Rocco Jello Shot Challenge, where the money's now going to NIL to support tradition, baby, right?
Are we on? We're
I'm just talking to myself.
I didn't know. I didn't. No, exactly
got
right.
TVs all over here.
Yeah, we're having a college athletics event where there's alcohol being told, take shots.
And half your money goes to the NIL.
Money goes to the NIL
pool.
in Tennessee. Yeah,
but we're worried about tradition, right? Like I think those are kind of like small things. Obviously, that's not a black to black or white to white comparison necessarily. It's not the exact same thing, but I think you understand where I'm coming from here. Like everything's corporatized, everything's about the money, and the Jello Shot Challenge in Omaha is no different than anything else either at this point. So yeah, spare me the clutching of pearls over some of the moves being made by your mark.
If a business wants to put their image on the Baylor football helmet and pay us for it, we'll do it. We'll do the revenue. Well, maybe Baylor wouldn't want that, but maybe right behind Baylor on the wooden table. I mean, look up behind us. Imaging and branding, and if there's a place to put a logo and someone's going to give you money that's not just trashy, that's how we make our living. That's how we pay for what we do every day, including, of course, the YouTube viewership, which is great.
Well, it's not about us. I mean, I'm talking about the colleges, but
I'm talking about
right.
you could
advertising's
find a way
advertise. Yeah, but point being, like, it's just good that we're at least going to maintain some tradition, even though the Jello Shot Challenge has obviously crossed that line. And so just thankfully we're never going to have, gaudy logos on fields. Oh, wait, we're doing that too? But at least we're never going to contemplate putting anything like advertising on the jerseys. Wait, we're doing that possibly too?
Chime with the Boston Celtics.
So, yeah, spare me the pearl clutching.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I do think there are lines you can cross, but I don't think that the ones that have been like the topic of the last 24 hours necessarily are the ones that are all that scary. I think the private equity thing, though, is one of those that, like, yeah, you've got to definitely figure out some more of the details on that. But I think I've made my point and firmly established how I feel about the All-State 12 at this stage. So go forth and make your money.
All right, I was going to put this up in the chat. Right now, 365 Sports would take you up until 6 o'clock. Right now, send us a note in the chat room, a question you have for us, and or a comment you want us to read that is one that is current and about college athletics, whether it's college football or not, or something else that you would like to discuss, and we'll answer those questions. But do it now. You go on the chat room, send us a message. You could put at David Smoke or at 365 Sports. Garrett, are you in there too? Is that something where you have a name in there?
I have access. I can see it, but I don't have like an account set up.
Yeah, but put it up. Get a question out to us. And I was going to go back through the chat, but man, that thing changes so much. It's like the stock market. So if you have a question, we'd love to hear it and also answer it and read it on the show. Go to 365 Sports or at David Smoke if you want in the top chat room. And by the way, the super chat today, wait a minute. Yesterday we had about 5 or 6 of them. It's blank. Garrett, it's blank. Did I hear that noise at some point that sounded
There was one earlier that dinged, and it popped up on the main screen, but within the chat room, I never saw it pop up.
Okay, Scotty B, 365 Sports bold prediction. Nobody in the Big 12 does better than 10-2. I would take that. That means you're going to have somebody that goes 11-1 or better. Again, you're talking about before if they get to the Big 12 championship game. I would say that's probably that there won't be anybody better than 10-2. That means somebody has to go 11-1.
Yeah, or 12-0.
Yeah, well, at least 11-1 is
I mean, I think I'd bet with you on that, but I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. I think Utah could go 11-1 or 12-0. I think K-State could go 11-1 or 12-0. I don't know that I would put money on that right now, but I think those two are capable. If things were to go like just the thing about Kansas is they have a really easy schedule. When you look at their breakdown, I think they got a really good draw, and there's a lot of ifs with them, if their O-line is better, and if Jalen Daniels is fully healthy, and if there's no drop-off from Andy Kotelnicki to Jeff Grimes, if all those things fall your way, then you'd maybe sneak. I mean, I wouldn't feel good about putting on Kansas just because I don't think there's so much like certainty that you think they're going to only lose 1 or 2 games in the regular season. But I could see things falling the right way. They can make that happen. But certainly Utah and K-State, I could see them doing that. But yeah, that's an interesting debate to have, Scotty, and I'll say that it wouldn't surprise me whatsoever if that turned out to be the case. So I don't know that I agree that that's what will happen, but I do feel like, yeah, there's a very strong chance of that, because if you just look at like the conference standings, I mean, last year everybody's got 3, 4, 5, 6 losses, with the exception of a couple of them.
Texas.
And Texas was like kind of the lone wolf there. So, except for the loss to Oklahoma. Even they had taken a loss.
I was thinking about this last night about UT season because they were really, really good. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were really, really good and almost had the miracle come back. Washington, just fell asleep. But, they had a couple of games. Every even really good team has a couple of games that you could have gone the wrong. K-State was the one. Houston was still something that was really dicey. And then there's, again, you're going to win a couple of those. You're not going to win all of them. But you always have, even the best teams ever have a game or two during the season where they had. By the way, on Kansas, they play at Illinois and at West Virginia in the first month of the year. So that, I'm not saying that they can't beat either one of those teams. They'll probably be favored against Illinois. However, that's something to be interested, kind of watch what happens early on in September with the expectations.
No, that Illinois game is very interesting just because Brett Bielema has done a good job there. And then being on the road, not knowing about Jalen Daniels all the way yet, his second game back, I think. So, yeah, that's definitely one that you circle and you go that's a little bit of a tough challenge right out of the gate. So, yeah, that's why I wouldn't have them and okay, you have to put money down on however many teams you want that you feel have a shot to go 11-1 or better.
Yes.
I wouldn't have them there, but I'd have them right on the cusp of that.
All right, let's go rapid fire here.
Right
the Dundies. I think that's how you say your name. Who has the best home field advantage in the Big 12 now with Texas and Oklahoma gone? I don't think Texas had a great home field advantage. As big as the stadium was.
At the end.
Well, maybe. Well, they got locked in because they were really good.
They were good. They had 100,000 plus. Del Conte spiced up the game day. I think that they had it kind of cooking there at the end where it became a better advantage. It wasn't the best, but it was better than it had been for a while.
About time. Yeah. I mean, you're going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and at times you still wondered about if it was a mausoleum, but they got lit up last year because they could feel there was something special. OU's always been a great place. Who has the best home field advantage in the Big 12?
I mean, my mind immediately goes to Oklahoma State. Although, I know West Virginia, when that's popping off, you get Morgantown. That can be a really dangerous place to play.
It's kind of a distant location to go into. Yeah.
So I think Morgantown has to be mentioned there as well. Utah, I think Utah's got one of those. Now, I'm still admittedly trying to learn about these 4 new teams because it's not like they were right next door this whole entire time and they were kind of in and out. And we were sort of – it's like they were on the map of talking about college football, but not of a focus of any shape or form. Colorado, we have a better idea about because we saw them for a long time. But I've heard really good things about Utah, and they're very, very good at home. But my mind immediately goes to Oklahoma State, just for like a one-team answer. That's where it goes.
The atmosphere, now they didn't live up to it last year at Provo. Mm-hmm. At BYU, that night game when they played Baylor that night was just unbelievably electric, and no one could stop talking about it when they got back.
I was going to say them as well as another also ran. I would say BYU when they're cooking like a Friday night game, like when it gets really weird, white out and all that. Like, that's a tough place to play.
Garrett, real quickly, we'll get to another question. We got a bunch of them.
I think Oklahoma State and Utah, you can both make a case, but for me, I don't know what it is. I love the bounce house. I think there's something special and unique about the bounce house, zombie nation.
And that's only going to get better, too, although it's crazy. Chance the
Baylor took a big old needle and just popped that sucker last year because that thing was rocketing and they deflated it. But, it's got some fun aspects to it that can really be built off of as well and be one of the best,
Chance the Big 12 puts 2 teams in the playoff.
0.
I think 0. I think it's better than 0. I don't think it's really super high, though. That all depends on what the records are that we're talking, obviously. So I give it – they're going to have somebody in there, obviously, at number 1. But the number 2 is just – it hinges on, are you a one-loss team who lost in a close game? Like, it's going to have to – if you're in the SEC, you don't even have to make the championship game or the Big Ten. You just have to be a strong 3 or 4, and you're in.
Yep.
Whereas in the Big 12, you might make the championship game, and you're still not guaranteed of anything.
Even if you're 11-1 afterward, 11-2.
I would have to believe you get in, unless there's just a set of circumstances where it's just like somehow.
It's not it cannot be predetermined if a team earns it. But go ahead.
Unless there's just a set of circumstances where there's like 4 or 5 one-loss teams somehow, or because the conference is getting so big. But I think the percentage of that happening is pretty low right now. But I don't think it's completely off the table. I just think it would take having like a couple undefeateds.
All right, the
meeting
chance
up in the Big 12 championship.
What is the chance? 0 to 100%, like 25%?
I'd say like 35%, maybe. Yeah.
All right. And you say none, right, Garrett?
I mean, if we're going to be real, probably about 10 to 25%.
Kyle Visser, Smokey, you had 2 days since you put your rankings out. Do you want to reconsider putting Houston number 1? I'll hang up and listen. So will I. No, but I love you, Kyle. Appreciate your time. Out of all the new additions from Santiago, Orozco, which program would you want to visit for an away game? I tell you what, the view in Colorado is just drop-dead gorgeous. I love Sun Devil Stadium at Arizona State. I know it's an antiquated stadium, but I just have some fond memories there. Nebraska won a national title, but my dad went. I just love that stadium.
It'd be Utah or Colorado for me. I think either one I'd be totally satisfied with. I do think Colorado's got that bit of beauty, though, that's just very unique to them, and that does feel like it's nice and cozy, and just the vibes there seem pretty cool. Like it would be a lot of fun to go out there. But yeah, if that fell through, then I'd have no problem heading to Salt Lake City to watch the Utes play at home. I think that'd be a lot of fun. But definitely those two. the Arizona schools have some work to do to make that a more intimidating or I guess a destination type of place.
Well, we got to get used to them, too, and go watch games. Santiago, by the way, love the show out of California. Thank you, Santiago. Paxton, T-Boone, Pickens, best home field advantage. Justin, if the Big 12 ends up beating each other up, and let's say there's a 2-loss Big 12 champion, would it get a fourth bye over an undefeated G5 champion?
What do you mean a fourth bye?
First round bye.
Oh.
Among the 4 first-round buys.
Over an undefeated. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. I just think the problem with that is, again, a lot would depend on the details, but I get we don't know those. So I think if it's Liberty, then they get the bye over Liberty, especially after what happened with Liberty last year. And I think the G5s now have been kind of cleaned out a little bit. Like the Big 12 went and plucked away some of the best ones. So I know there's your two lanes, although they've hired a really good coach. They're having to replace a really good coach. I don't know. I think the Big 12 team gets the nod unless the G5 was just that incredibly impressive, but I think it's harder than ever to be that impressive as a G5.
What do we say about the polls when they come out every week during the season? There's like 1 through 18 or 19, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, we need to stick Coastal Carolina in at 23 or 24 or whatever it might be. Let's see.
Yeah, I think that a lot would depend on what were those 2 losses and how did those occur. But it's just, if you look around, like the G5's just kind of been rated here. Even in SMU is no longer a part of that now. Like SMU's now in the ACC. So you just have to be so incredibly impressive, I feel like. So, I'd actually give the nod to the Big 12 school, I think, in that scenario.
Paxton, what are your percentages on Dave Aranda being fired after this season?
50-50.
I'm going to say 50-50, and that's not a cop-out because we have no idea. If they go 50-50, they go 6-6, some think that's enough. You guys were talking about that's a 3-game improvement. I still think do you look like a freaking football team and have a rhyme and a reason to what you do?
Well, did you start off 5-1 and finish 6-6, or was it spread out, or who were the wins against? I do think that 6-6 is probably keeping you safe because I don't really think they want to fire him. I think, firing him just means you start all over again. Now, at some point, you're going to have to, figure out, okay, he's doing enough to stick around, but, is that good enough to, be relevant? How long do you want to go without being relevant? And I feel like you've gone a couple of years now where you haven't really been that relevant. So, 6-6, I think, would depend on probably the particulars, but 90% chance that would keep him safe. But, I think it's totally 50-50. I think it all depends on what happens on the field and how they win and how much they win. And maybe there's a scenario where they gut it out to 5 wins because a bunch of guys got hurt and they're playing their hearts out, and you go man, this thing is on the right track. But it's all going to be determined by those wins. If they win 3 or 4 games, he's got to be gone. He has to be. There's just no way to continue to try to prop that up, unfortunately.
And if they would have had a couple of more losses like West Virginia, even though it was a disappointing ending, but they were scratching and clawing and they were fighting and they played a team better than them and took them to the wire, and there wasn't a lot of that. There wasn't a lot of that.
And you can't say next year, we got all these young guys. It's because you just said that, and you can't say, well, we'll just go change the coordinators because you just did that. And you can't say, well, we'll go get a big transfer quarterback because you just, you've done everything now. The only thing you have not done in the last 2 years is win at a regular clip. And so, it all matters, what's in the win column. And if there is a little sticky situation where, like I said, it's only 5 or 6 because of the way things unfolded out of your control, then I think you have some room for grace there. But he's just got to go win, bottom line. He has to go win football games this year. And if they don't even sniff a bowl game, there's just no way to rationalize having him back for yet another season. And I think everybody wants him back for the most part, but you got to go out and prove it. You got to go out and show that you're worth the investment and the money and all of that. And right now they're at a bit of a crossroads.
Art Strickland's going to join us in a minute from Pinehurst. Paul's got a top 5 for today, right? And then next week he'll be out completely. Jason Sobel on the U.S. Open and Tiger Woods, who's now 7 over. He's done. One, I think, maybe finished up 18. His first 48 major championships as a pro, he missed the cut once. In 3 major starts this year, he's missed it now twice. So, and when he has made the cut, he hasn't been able to always finish because he's had to withdraw because of the way his leg might be acting up.
Is that your Tiger update?
Yeah.
Tiger Woods update?
Yeah, I watched
Bought
him.
his new clothes yet?
It's not making clutch putts. No, I actually went on for the Sunday Red. I wanted to get a Sunday Red shirt. And when I went to go buy it, the first week they were all sold out. I love the guy. I love what he brought joy to my life when it comes to watching him play golf. But I don't know if I'm going to do Sunday Red.
Do you like that logo? I don't
like it on the hat. On the shirt, it's fine.
It's
it looks
growing
like,
on me on the shirt.
Almost looks like a Puma, you know?
Yeah.
And Puma used to be a great brand. Maybe it still is. I don't know. But on the hat, I'm not into that. That doesn't seem to be, to me, the Nike logo. And I know there's some that are Adidas and whatever else. To me, there's just nothing cleaner than that Nike logo. And when he wore it, it was extra special.
Yeah, the Sunday Red with the Nike swoosh is trademark and hard to duplicate that, even if you're kind of doing the same thing. It's just that swoosh made it look differently than any other logo is going to make it look. But, another note I wanted to pass along here just came down. But Jonathan Giovanni of Draft Express saying that Baylor center Yves Missy has received a green room invite to attend the NBA draft. So that's a couple of Baylor Bears that have now been invited in the last 48 hours to attend the draft in the green room. So that bodes well for both Jacoby Walter and now Yves Missy as well. So good for him. Congratulations on that honor.
All right, Garrett, we'll take a break here. When we come back, Art Strickland from Pinehurst, number 2. We'll look at the top of the leaderboard, get some of the storylines. Scotty Scheffler, is he going to make it to the weekend? Man, we knew the cut line would go up. How many people are under par? More than I thought, but it's still just round 2. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for all of your automotive needs. So whether you're going to get your tires fixed up, get an oil change, or get into a brand new vehicle, Richard Carr is the one-stop shop for all your automotive needs here in the Central Texas area and has been for over 25 years now. You've heard me talk a lot about their celebration back in the springtime, celebrating their birthday. They had the big Eclipse event as well a couple of months back as we were right in the heart of the eclipse that occurred. And now it's getting hot outside and it's summertime, so it's the Hot Summer Savings event on GMC, Buick, and Cadillacs going on right now over at Richard Carr, and that means a lot loaded with GMC Sierra trucks and more on the way as well. You can right now save over $10,000 on their remaining inventory when it comes to the 2023 Sierra SLT or ATX trucks in stock. Qualified buyers can also get 1.9% financing and no payments for 90 days, no payments for 3 months. That's a nice feeling. Also, military and first responders can save an additional $500 on top of the other savings as well. And, of course, you can talk to the good folks over at Richard Carr by visiting the website, going to see him in person, or giving a phone call to get even more details. But right now, those 2023 Sierra SLTs save $10,000 on their remaining stock over at Richard Carr or their AT4X trucks as well. Also, a lot full of quality pre-owned cars and trucks are available to peruse through and obviously take home as well if you find the right one. They have a ton of inventory posted online that you can go and see for yourself and get more details on. And then come on by the dealership and make them an offer during business hours, as they are the people that you can count on and ready to talk pricing and make sure that you get the best offer that you possibly can on their vehicles. So if you're looking to go pre-owned, they have a lot full of cars, trucks, and SUVs for you to check out right now, plus 100% credit approval is always their goal. And for 25 years, they have built a reputation as the people you can count on in the area and beyond for your automotive needs. So log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
Cars priced right, day and night. At Richard Carr in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. At Richard Carr in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. At Richard Carr in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Richard Carr in Waco, Texas.
one size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses. When it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one size fits all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs. Knowing you, that's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoke and Craig Smoke.
Ludwig Oberg, Texas Tech alum, tied with Matthew Pavon at the top of the leaderboard at 5 under. Both of them are on the back nine. Dietrich and DeChambeau are done at 4 under par. Patrick Cantlay and Tony Finau, both at the very end of their round at 4 under. Rory McIlroy at 3 under par. Those are the top 7. And big names, Matsuyama, Schauffele, who won the PGA. Hatton, of course, is a heck of a fun guy to watch as well, among some others. We're now joined by Art Strickland, PGA Tour columnist, who's at Pinehurst #2, covering the U.S. Open. Art, I want to start off with this. I expected and I demand that you work on the USGA. I want carnage. There are 18 players under par. That's too much, in my opinion.
I'll speak to the lads about that today and see what they have to say. But yeah, a lot under par. But you know, we got two more days to go. No rain is predicted here the next couple of days, which means the greens won't get faster, more steep. But I knew you'd appreciate this today, Smokey. The USGA issued a critical heat alert this afternoon because the temperature got to 92 degrees. So critical heat alert at 92 degrees at Pinehurst today. He used caution for that. So I guess that means they're not coming to Waco for the U.S. Open anytime soon.
Used a heat alert, a temperature alert, 90. Well, you know, different parts. I know that it's also, instead, like most people, yeah, like the humidity factor involved, it's like 97 is what it feels like. But so we knew the greens were going to be like the front of a car. And we've seen that before. I love that. I actually saw a highly ranked player say he liked it that way, that they wanted to see maybe not a lot of courses like this, but more courses like this. Do you like the way it's set up?
I like the way it's set up for the U.S. Open. Certainly. I think our national championship, which the Open is, needs to be tough, and it needs to be par as your friend. But what makes the tour great, in my opinion, is that every week is different. Would you want this every week? You would not. but you certainly won it this week. It should be difficult. Will Zalatoris, who's not going to make the cut, but he said the secret to my success in the majors, he has 7 top 10 finishes in the majors, is that I like hard golf courses. And the U.S. Open is hard, and so I like that a lot. I mean, maybe a little too hard for Scotty Scheffler. That's certainly the biggest story today and all week long. And, you know, the red flag should have come out, David, when he said in his pre-tournament interview he had never been to Pinehurst before and not played at North-South, not played a World Junior. And so really hard to figure out a course this complex in just 1 week. And, you know, he's going to make the cut, I think, barely. He's right on the cut line. I think it'll stay at 5, not going to 4. But really a shocker to see Scotty Scheffler barely make the cut this week, and with what, 8:30 tee time in the morning.
Yeah, and because he's so efficient, so accurate with what he does. So you also on the cut line at 5 over, you have Matt Fitzpatrick. He's won a U.S. Open. Scheffler, who was the favorite. Fleetwood's at 5 over par 2, but Hovland's at 6 over. It won't go to 6, right? It'll stay at 5 or below.
It will not. No, it won't go to. It might go to. I don't see it going to 6. That'd be very surprised. You know, Tiger plus 7. I predicted he would make the cut. Thought he would grind it out, and he was 1 under par yesterday morning, but just slipped away from him. So, yeah, cut's going to be at 5. Scotty will play. Actually, Shane Lowry, the champion golfer of the year, is staying 3 houses down from where I had some Art of Golf clients this week, and had a little talk with Shane Lowry, and he's going to make the cut at 5 over par. So otherwise, he could have come over for a barbecue tomorrow.
Yeah, he could. He could. Hey, Brooks Koepka triple bogeyed 3. He's at 5 over. Wait a minute. I think he's at 4 over par. He still has a couple of holes to play. I really thought that a tough course like that, you know, there used to be, remember when Retief Goosen used to love the hard U.S. Open layouts. I really thought that Koepka would play better. What's been his issue today?
You know, that's a hard one to figure out, Smokey. You know, he's the last back-to-back winner of the U.S. Open, one in Aaron Hills and, you know, won again. So hard to figure that out. I mean, I think as John Rahm said, a lot of these guys who have gone to LIV Golf, they're finding out they do not have many competitive rounds in them. You know, LIV plays maybe 4 or 5 times before the Open. So competitive golf, which is, you know, way different from practicing or playing with your buddies back home. Competitive golf, maybe 20 rounds total. That's hurt John Rahm, and I'm not sure it's not hurting Brooks Koepka as well.
Yeah, there's some other names that are not going to make the cut. Zalatoris, of course, has battled back from the injuries he's had. Justin, hey, what's gone on with Justin Thomas? He's 10 over, 3 over today, and it just seems like he's lost his game. And we see this. A lot of great names have lost their game.
I just think that I think his problem is that his father is his only teacher. And if his dad loved his son, which I'm sure he does, I know he does, but if his dad would say, son, it might be time for you to get a different opinion.
Yeah.
Get someone else to look at your game. Get somebody else to give it a spin. Because, you know, Chad Campbell's dad once told me Chad never had a teacher other than him. And that hurts when you get in a bad way. Obviously, Justin's in a bad way. You need someone to look at your game that's a fresh set of eyes. And his dad's just not cutting it. And if his dad was savvy, which I think he is, he would say that. You need to go find someone else to give you some lessons and see how it worked for you. Because he should not disintegrate this fast like he has been.
By the way, a couple of the guys at 6 over that appear they'll miss the cut. Hovland, Max Homa, who's pretty accurate with what he does. So let's go back to Scotty Scheffler. I was watching a lot of his round earlier today. He just, even yesterday, his iron play, which is so stellar, and I know that those greens are crazy tough, you know, but it just seemed like he started out poorly with how he was hitting his irons and just set the tone for a tough weekend.
Yeah, when I saw him throw his club today, and I think it was the 3rd green, he chipped the ball up, rolled back to his feet. chipped it up again, then missed about a 10-foot putt and threw his putter. I mean, that's not what you see from Scotty Scheffler. But I just think the frustration level here is so high. This course can make you look bad. I watched Dustin Johnson play ping pong on a green today, back and forth and back and forth. And that's what Pinehurst will do to you. And so that's why Scotty never been here before and not real experience with how severe the greens are. Because let's face it, they don't play another course like Pinehurst anywhere else. Most weeks is bomb and gorge and how far can you hit it. And I just see that this is a unique test. And Scotty, I think in hindsight, wishes he had been here and worked a little bit more before tournament week arrived.
All right, so let's look at still Oberg and Pavon are both on the course at 5 under. Thomas Dietrich, tell us a little bit about Dietrich. He's a name that's in golf. People who watch golf know him, but he shoots 69, 67. Not many guys are going to shoot both rounds in the 60s, at least the first 2 rounds this week.
No doubt about it. Obviously, good European player, played on the Ryder Cup team. Got a lot of talent. Pavone, French guy, won in San Diego this year. And that's the only reason that I would be hesitant to pick Ludwig to win this week. It's so hard to win your first tournament to be a major, and especially a player of his age. And so the fact that Pavone won in San Diego this year, knows what it's like and finish out a tournament, I would give him more. I think Ludwig's great. I think he's going to win a ton in his career. But to make your first win a major championship, especially at that age, is incredibly difficult.
All right, Rory was 2 over today, but looked like he was still in control of his game. He's in a pretty good spot. Cantley and Finau are still on the course. They're both at 4 under par. DeChambeau's done at 4 under par. See, someone like Matsuya, this is a hell of a leaderboard. There's a couple of names people have not really heard much about. Pavone, but he won earlier this year. Dietrich, we mentioned. This is the cream rises to the top. Schauffele gutted out his second round. He's in the top 10. This is a really nice leaderboard with maybe one name or two as an exception.
Yeah, the guy to watch out for, if you want somebody to really watch out for this weekend, I'm not saying he's my favorite guy, but a guy I really think that could walk away is DeChambeau. I mean, we know what he did at the PGA, came in a shot away. He has won the U.S. Open at Winged Foot.
Yep.
So certainly he has the formula down for U.S. Opens. And the fact that he did so well at the PGA, and also he said in his post-game interviews, post-run interviews, he's changed his life, changed his persona, changed his life, changed the way he approaches the game. And now it's no longer a trick show. How far can I hit it? What clubs can I do? But it really is just concentrating on using his immense talent. And also, with Phil out of the picture, no one has signed more autographs this week than Bryson DeChambeau. I never thought I'd say that, but he has been the autograph king this week. And, so as a guy I like a lot if you're looking for somebody to raise the trophy on Sunday.
He's one of the few guys that for anyone that's anything anti-live or whatever, he's one of the few guys that it seems like his popularity has grown. Maybe not initially when he joined, but his popularity has grown. I think he does a great job with the YouTube videos and other things, his lessons. And I think people have kind of gone, first of all, he's a maniac on the golf course, but he's smart with his being kind of crazy the way he hammers the ball all over the place. Matsuyama's in the middle of the mix. He's a grinder. Shot 66 today. All right, one last thing. Oberg, Texas Tech, phenomenal player. They get these guys, like even when Rory was young, they said that guy's going to win majors, whatever. What is it about his game that is so damn good, and why people thought of him as a stud before he even took his first swing on the PGA Tour?
A lot like Scotty Scheffler, Smokey, he is a low thumper, which means that he does not get too high and he does not get too low. You watch him play out there wearing this Adidas gear, he just goes about it very methodically. He makes birdie. He's not going to fist pump. He makes double bogey, not going to hang his head. He's a low thumper. He's just very consistent. He's very purposed, and I just don't think you can't get too high and too low in this game. I really don't think that's the game. So that's why I think he's been successful. Plus, he's a heck of a player and a Texas Tech guy. So, he might have a lifetime pass at the 50-yard line if he wins this week.
Oh, he'll be sitting next to Patrick Mahomes, right? I mean, like right next to him.
Yeah, absolutely.
He is. He's a low thumper. I like the way you said that. And hell of a putter. And Paxton even mentioned that in the chat room. Okay. Last thing, Art, can you try to describe standing around or near one of the greens how actually severe the runoffs really are and how slick it is around the greens?
Oh, unbelievable. I think you said it good earlier. Like putting on the hood of your car. I mean, it can fall off in any direction. All the bunkers are shaggy face, jagged edge, which means if the bunkers, if you go into the bunker, it's not smooth and it just rolls in. You chip it out. They're all jaggedy edge. You can get grass. You can get gravel. Like I said, Dustin Johnson made a 9 today. A 9.
Yep.
He hit 4 on the greens back and forth. But, that's what makes the Open unique.
Yep.
Every major should be different. Next week we're going to Troon, where I was a few weeks ago. And that's going to be different because it's going to be cool. It could be wet. It could be windy. Every major should be different. And you're certainly seeing that at the U.S. Open this week.
All right, last thing. I want you to plug what you do. You said you had a group that's there just 3 houses down from Shane Lowry.
Right.
Tell everybody how to get in touch with you. You take them on these unbelievable. You said Troon. You take them on great golf courses and trips. Tell everyone how to get a hold of you.
Sure, yeah. We did play the new Pinehurst number 10 today. Spectacularly good. A brand new course. No one's played it, but the Art of Golf has contacts everywhere. So go to www.theartofgolftravel.com. www.theartofgolftravel.com.
All right. I had somebody ask me, how do you explain what a low thumper is as far as Oberg and Scheffler?
It's a low heartbeat. You look at them, they look calm and, composed. And so a low thumper just means low heartbeat.
All right.
You like a duck paddling. You don't see them paddling like hell underneath the water. You just see them gliding along, and that's what these guys do.
That's a great analogy. Thank you very much, buddy. Appreciate your time, Art. Enjoy what you do. Does a great job taking anyone on great golf trips around the world, and also the one where they're watching the U.S. Open at Pinehurst number 2. So they just played Pinehurst number 10. All right, it's time for Paul Catalina. He's out today and all of next week, but one more for this week, his top 5.
It's Ram Truck Month at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get a 2024 Ram 1500 Lone Star with 0% for 72 months. Don't miss out on this incredible deal. Hurry in today and drive home in the truck of your dreams, only at Allen Samuels in Waco.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs. Even offering financing if that's needed, everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texans are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist's office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
.365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Howdy ho! Welcome to Paul Catalina's Top 5 SEC QBs, presented by Texas Beef House. I'm technically on vacation right now, but out of the goodness of my heart, because I'm a saintly man, I've decided to do another Top 5 for you guys. Before, you won't have them at all next week. I'm just going to tell you, they're not. If you contact me next week for the Top 5, it would be Top 5 pool drinks that I just had. And probably at any given day, it's just the same ones 5 times, because you don't want to mix too much when you're out in the sun. That's how you get sick. But please go to TexasBeefHouse.com, where you won't get sick at all, and use our promo code SICK'EM10 for your first order on some of the best, if not the best, Wagyu beef you can get in the country at TexasBeefHouse.com. Top 5 SEC QBs. Don't come for me, SEC fans, but this is just my estimation, and these are very, very close. This is a great QB league. You get to, if you're the king, you get to reap the spoils. Number 5, Brady Cook at Mizzou. Led Mizzou to their best season in many, many years last year. Prototypical everything. He's big. He's got a strong arm. He does all of that well. Stands in the pocket, delivers the pass well. And he's got Luther Burden to throw to. He's got good running backs. He's got Theo Weiss. He's going to put up big numbers. Mizzou's going to win a lot of games this year. Brady Cook's a dude who you're going to see playing on Sundays as well, or at least getting the opportunity to. He's got everything the scouts like. Look, I mean, this is like the perfect form here. You're looking at this, and this is Brady Cook pretty much all the time at Mizzou. Number 4, Jackson Dart at Ole Miss, a dual-threat quarterback, a guy who's winning a lot of ball games, and a guy who has a ton more weapons around him. And you'll really see what Jackson Dart can do this year, as Ole Miss has pushed all their chips to the middle of the table in the NIL game to try to compete and win the SEC, something they have not done in a very, very, very long time. Jackson Dart, he can score with his feet. He can make things happen through the air. He's going to have great skill position players all around him. He's going to have a great offensive line, and that defense should be much improved just by adding Walter Nolan alone. And Ole Miss is going to win a bunch of games this year, and Jackson Dart is going to put up a lot of numbers. As a matter of fact, I would not be surprised to see Jackson Dart at least in the top 5 of the Heisman voting this year if Ole Miss does what they think they're going to do. Number 3, Quinn Ewers at Texas. Now, look, there's going to be somebody on this list that Quinn Ewers beat, and you're going to get mad. I get it. He is fantastic. He's really, really good. He's winning more and more each season. He's coming to his own more and more each season. He's going to be a high draft pick. All those things are true. He's got maybe the best arm out of anybody on this list for sure. But just as the overall quarterback, I need to see one more year of development before I'm fully in on him being the best in the SEC. But I really do like Quinn Ewers' skill set. I like what he can do. I like the way he's led this Texas team. All those things are good about him, but I've got him at number 3 right now. Number 2, Carson Beck at UGA. Probably the first quarterback off the board if the draft was held today. Now, that may not hold true, but showed last year where he is in the development. He is going up, 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 up. Georgia is Georgia. They're going to put up big numbers. Blah, 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 blah. All those things about Kirby Smart. You can say it again and again and again. We're on the hamster wheel about the Bulldogs. But Carson Beck is excellent. Again, another prototypical guy. Look at all that. Just looks just like Brady Cook does there. You know, tall and lean and Big, strong arm, good form, good passes, all those things you want, accurate. He is a guy who's also going to win a ton of games. And number one, and I know this will not be without some controversy, Jalen Milroe at Alabama. And the reason I say this is there's not a more complete athlete on this list than Jalen Milroe. And from the Texas game where they lost, to the USF game where he was benched, to the end of the year where they went to the playoff, he got better and better and better and better and better. And I think with the offseason of that confidence, it's only going to make him more lethal. And you cannot take chances with him on the field. You had to have a Michigan defense that was incredibly disciplined to contain him before. Most of the teams they play, even the good ones, won't have a defense like Michigan did last year, and he's going to make them pay a lot. Maybe Alabama takes a step back, wins and losses, because they're in a coaching transition and the great Nick Saban isn't there anymore. But I know one guy who's not going to take a step back. It's Jalen Milroe, who is absolutely maybe the best athlete completely in all of college football this year, and he will put up some very, very, very big numbers. Well, I hope you guys have as much fun next week as I'm going to be while I'll be drunk in a pool. So, Smokey and Craig, wrap it up.
Paul Catalina, you could tell just based on his attitude that he's gone. Before that even was recorded. He's mentally and emotionally like a lot of people are before vacation starts, but we appreciate him doing that one for today.
Yeah, I think that one's going to, if it finds itself seeping into the right places, going to cause a little bit of controversy as far as Jalen Milroe at number one. Clearly, Blake Shapen's the best quarterback in the SEC next year.
Yep.
But no, in all seriousness, I can see like you making the case for that, but I do think that'll probably be amongst the most widely debated number one choices he's made for sure. When you got some of the other guys in that league, you've got like Beck and Ewers and so on and so forth. But I like Milroe a lot. I like him a lot, and I'm very curious to see how he does in Kalen DeBoer's offense.
I've never met him. Was coming to Texas on the same day that Nick Saban decided to retire, so he wasn't able to make it to Tyler for the Earl Campbell Award banquet. I liked the way he handled. He was raw. Texas picked him off a couple of big times and then won that game, but I thought Milroe brought him back. I thought he got better, and he got benched right after that, or a game or two. Was it against like UCF or USF?
USF.
And he didn't turn into a whiny little child. He just said, okay. I just wish him the best. I like him. I like the way he handled a lot of things. And then the throw against Auburn was crazy good.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting year for the league as far as quarterbacks go too, because there isn't necessarily just a dominant guy. Like we all think Ewers is really good, or Cook is really good, and you expect like Iamaleava is going to be really good, but there's not like necessarily that dude.
Yep.
So yeah, Beck, Ewers, Milroe, whoever you want, Cook, so on and so forth. Like it's pretty wide open, so you can see the case for it. But I think that'll be like probably a controversial take for some people. But hey, hope Paul enjoys his vacation. We appreciate him.
Yep, appreciate that. Thank you, Paul. TexasBeefHouse.com. Thank you to their sponsorship. Remember, June 22nd of next week, they have the next online auction, and more on that as we get into next week. Jack McKenzie, thank you. Levi Caraway, Emery Winters dialing up 365 Sports tonight at 10:30 on the CW. Also, intern James, Paul, Garrett, thank you, buddy.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you tonight. Mavericks game 3 against the Celtics.
Game 4.
It's game 4. They wish it was a repeat. They could replay game 3. Game 4 tonight up in Dallas. I'll be driving by the arena on my way up to go see Jennifer and Daniel. Craig, have a great weekend yourself. Thanks to all of you who watch us, listen to us, a part of what we do. I'm David Smoke. Have a great Father's Day weekend, too. This is 365 Sports, and good night.